Well, good morning. I now convene the June 20 and 21st meeting on teacher credentialing. The Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act for teleconference meetings requires that commission members who are attending the meeting via teleconference to disclose if any other individuals 18 years of age are present in the group with no location, and the general nature of the member's relationship with any such individuals. Are there any disclosures for members attending via Zoom? Commissioner Pavre?
No disclosures, thank you.
Commissioner Brown?
No disclosures.
Commissioners who are participating via Zoom must be visible at all times on camera. Please log off Zoom if you need to leave the meeting and log in when you are ready to join me. If you experience broadband or internet connectivity problems while participating in the meeting, that would be remedied by joining without video. You must announce the reason for your non-appearance when you turn off the video. We will now take roll. Recording secretary, will you please call the roll?
Jeanette Brown.
Here.
Catherine Williams Brown.
Here.
Jose Cardenas.
Present.
Cheryl Cotton.
Present.
Juan Cruz.
Here.
Christopher Davis.
Present.
Michael David.
Present.
Anna Marie Francois. Tyler.
Present.
Megan Gross.
Present.
Yeah. Bonnie Clark.
Present.
Ira Litt.
Present.
Monica Martinez. Shireen Powley.
Present.
Lady Simmons.
Present.
Donald Uzon.
Present.
Kimberly Y. Smith. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Commissioner Litt, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning again and welcome to the first commission meeting in our new building at the May Lee State Office Complex. I would like to remind everyone about the meeting procedures before we get to today's agenda. This meeting is being conducted at the commission office and via teleconference. We have commissioners participating from the commission building and also via Zoom. The public has the option to attend the general session of the meeting at the commission office or participate remotely through Zoom webcast or US toll-free phone number. The meeting rooms in this new building include new technology such as built-in microphones, speakers, cameras, and monitors. Please remember we are still learning about how to best use this technology for our patients, so we ask for your collective patience. For our meeting, so we ask for your collective patience. Members, you will notice that you do not have individual microphones. That is because this room is equipped with ceiling microphones that will pick up everything that is said at all times. I want to emphasize that. The microphones are always on, so please be aware that anything that is said in this room will be captured on the archived recording of the meeting. Therefore, side conversation should be kept to a minimum, if at all, while in this room. Members that are participating by Zoom or are connected to the Zoom meeting, please mute your laptop speakers and microphones and mute yourselves on the Zoom video. Commissioners attending the meeting via Zoom that would like to speak, please use the raise hand function in Zoom. Because this is a hybrid meeting, we will need to conduct each vote by roll call. We would like to ask the members of the public who attend the meeting via Zoom and would like to make public comment to check their Zoom identification. Your Zoom identification is the name used when logging into the meeting. It is important that the Zoom identification is accurate so we can call on you appropriately during public comments. Next, we will cover the public comment procedures. The committee chair will announce when the public comment period is open during the presentation of the agenda item and ask for anyone who wishes to comment to notify the meeting moderator. Individuals who attend the meeting at the commission office will need to submit a request to address the commission card to the meeting moderator. The meeting moderator will notify the individual when it is their turn to speak. At that time, the individual will be able to approach the podium and share their comments. Individuals who join the meeting via the Zoom webcast will click on the raised hand icon to inform the meeting moderator that they would like to speak on the item. The moderator will notify the individual when it is their turn to speak by calling their Zoom ID. At that time, the individual will to unmute their microphone and will be able to share their comment. The Zoom ID name used by the member of the public who joined the Zoom meeting will be displayed to the public when the individual provides public comment. Individuals who join the meeting through the U.S. toll-free number will need to press *9 on their phone to inform the meeting moderator that they would like to speak on the item. The moderator will notify the individual it is their turn to speak by calling their phone number and will allow them to unmute their phone. At that time, the individual will be prompted to press *6 and will be able to share their comment. Please note, only a partial phone number will be displayed to the public when the individual provides public comment. Public comment is limited to 2 minutes per speaker to speak on a particular agenda item. We ask that you keep your remarks brief and focused on the particular item you are speaking to. Please note that this meeting is being recorded. After the meeting, the archived audio and video will be available via the Commission's website. Item 2A is approval of April minutes. We will now open for public comment. Recording Secretary, are there any public comments?
No public comment.
The public comment period for this item is now closed. We will need to make 2 separate motions to approve the ad hoc committee and regular session minutes. I would like to remind everyone that only those who served on each committee can make and second the motion to approve the committee minutes. First, do I have a motion from a member of the ad hoc committee to approve the April 2024 ad hoc committee minutes? And as a reminder, the committee members are Danette Brown, Ira Litt, and myself. Do you have a motion? Okay, I'll make the motion. I have a motion by Commissioner Shire. Do I have a second? A second by Commissioner Litt. Any discussion? Okay. Will the recording secretary please call for the vote?
Annette Brown,
Aye.
Ira Litt,
Aye.
Ventura Shire.
Aye.
Carries.
Thank you. Next, do I have a motion to approve the April 2024 commission meeting minutes? I have a motion by Commissioner Hartwig. Is there a second? Mr. Davis, thank you. Any discussion? All right, for the recording vote, each member please respond with aye, nay, or abstain.
Annette Brown,
Aye.
Martinez,
Aye.
Carol Cotton,
Aye.
Aye.
Christopher Davis,
Aye.
Michael Delatorre,
Aye.
Makita Ventura Shire,
Aye.
Johanna Howard,
Aye.
Tony Pratt,
Aye.
Ira Litt,
Aye. Aye.
Ronald Udolph.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. The next item is 2B, approval of the June 2024 agenda. We have a revised agenda item 6B and agenda inserts for items 1A, 2C, and 6A. Agenda insert 6A is a new analysis of Senate Bill 1263 based on amendments made to the bill this week. We're going to shift the order of the agenda today and begin with the Educator Preparation Committee agenda item 3A will be presented. We're going to shift the order of the agenda today and begin with the Educator Preparation Committee. Agenda item 3A will be presented tomorrow. Colleagues, I'd like to start the Educated Appropriation Committee no later than 10. So please keep that in mind during our reports. We'll now open for public comment. Recording Secretary, are there any public comments? Public comment period for this item is now closed. Do you have a motion to approve the June 2024 agenda? Commissioner Cruz, is there a second? Commissioner Platt. I have a motion by Commissioner Cruz and a second by Commissioner Platt. Any discussion? Will the recording secretary please call for the vote? Each member please respond with aye, nay, or abstain.
Annette Brown,
Aye.
Cardenas,
Aye.
Cheryl Carlton,
Aye.
Juan Cruz,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Michael Delatorre,
Aye.
Makita Gano Shire,
Aye.
Johanna Howard,
Aye.
Bonnie Clark,
Aye.
Aye.
Lady Simmons,
Aye.
Tom Udall. Aye.
Agenda item 2C is approval of the June 2024 consent calendar. We will now open for public comment. Recording secretary, are there any public comments?
There are no public comments.
Public comment period for this item is now closed. Do commissioners have any items they would like to consider in closed session? Hartley.
I would like to consider number 58, Joanne Matabag.
Commissioner Cruz?
I'd like to consider Ruben Garcia, number 27, and I need to recuse myself from number 78, Scott.
Commissioner Litt?
I'd like to review number 79, Justin Battlemeyer.
Commissioner Davis?
I'd like to recuse, excuse me, I'd like to recuse from item number 126, Taejong.
26. Commissioner Brown?
Recuse myself from number 76, Timothy Rothenberg.
Commissioner Delatorre?
So I'd like to recuse myself from item 21, Featherston, item 28, Wallace, item 70, Ramirez, item 97, Almond, item 100, Dueñas, item 108, Preciado.
Commissioner Platt?
I'd like to pull for discussion item number 39, Joseph Huerta.
Commissioners? Yes. Commissioner Cardenas?
I'd like to recuse myself from item 74, Alex Robinson. I'd like to pull item number 4, Carol Bellis. Item 10, Emily Buckley. Item 26, Sheila French. And item 46, Michael LaFrenz.
Any other commissioners? Do I have a motion to approve all remaining items on the consent calendar? Commissioner Simmons?
I so move.
Thank you. Is there a second? Commissioner Delatorre? Will the recording secretary please call for the vote? Each member please respond with aye, nay, or abstain.
Annette Brown,
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Cheryl Carlton,
Aye.
Juan Cruz,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Michael Delatorre,
Aye.
Makita Gano Shire. Aye. Johanna Howard,
Aye.
Bonnie Clark.
Aye.
Ira Lynn,
Aye.
Lady Simmons,
Aye.
Tom Udall.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Well, good morning. What great new digs we find ourselves in this morning. To the CTC staff, thank you for continuing your work and support during this transition. As all of us in the room have moved at some point in our lives, and some of us have moved many times, we know what a hassle it is to move. I can't imagine what you all went through with the whole state agency. So on behalf of all the commissioners, I thank you very much. As I did last year at this time, as we end another school year, let me begin my remarks with a note of gratitude for all that each of you do every day for your students. To the teachers, counselors, and school leaders who serve on the commission, I am so grateful for your dedication, all the work on behalf of your educators, students, and their families. And to our higher education and community partners, thank you for all that you do to support the next generation of educators. I am so proud to serve with each of you. If you are in PK-12 or higher education, the end of school term is marked by commencement celebrations. But this year's celebration is unique in that the class of 2024 is like no other graduating class as they began their high school careers during the COVID-19 pandemic. This experience has been written about in the media, and I wanted to highlight some student voices on their experiences. As many students have shared, their high school years were tough. And for certain groups of students, including those students with disabilities, it was particularly difficult. But as these students have shared, thankfully, many feel stronger for it. This comes from All Things Considered program in May of 2019. Students have shared, imagine starting high school, no tour, no assembly, no meeting new friends. I started high school on my couch in my basement, and it was really lonely. Learning online was not popular. No cool biology labs, just a book and a screen with black boxes. Oh, it was rough. Playing sports with masks on was crazy and kind of awful. But many students did pull through. They seemed amazed at where they were 4 years ago compared to where they are now. So one student says, just seeing how I am, like socially now, and like being able to speak out more makes me proud. And as one teacher who is also a father summarized, these students, they got grit. They weathered this and they learned resilience. I want to offer congratulations to all the students of the class of 2024, their families, and their educators. Executive Director Sandy.
Oh, thank you so much. And I appreciate your honoring and just remembering in this moment of June, the graduations and the transitions that so many families are taking. Congratulations. I add mine to yours. So I also would like to welcome everyone to this building. We've been here 4 weeks. Week 1, we moved. Week 2, we had the Committee of Accreditation meeting. Week 3, we had the Committee of Credentials meeting. And week 4, we had the commission meeting. So welcome. There was no real downtime. And there's still boxes stacked in my office. I'll just confess that, and they may be there for a while. But this happening, you're exactly right. There's nothing small about a move of this sort, and going through things that have been packed in a space for 30 years. That's interesting. Some really interesting artifacts. In fact, somebody put on my desk a photo album, really old school photo album that had maybe the first 20 years of commissioners' headshots in it. That was interesting. What also interesting was that I know a couple of them, and that's just, a little weird for me. We have an extraordinary team here at this commission, and nothing like a move to really bring out the best and maybe sometimes the worst in people, but mostly the best. And I want to start with just thanking Brian Lynn Walsh and the Administrative Services Division, and Amarjot Byring, who works for Brian. He's our Director of IT, and Sarah Saley, who's our Director of Fiscal and Business Services. They also work with Brian. That team has been over here for longer than 4 weeks. They've been over here for several months. figuring out how the wiring works, figuring out just being part of making sure we could network ourselves into this building. And they worked tirelessly. And I think they went home tired a number of days because this was a very big lift for them. And so huge shout out to that team for just for making it happen. No matter what, you made it happen. And also huge request for grace. This is our first big meeting of this. This is the largest meeting now that we've had in the last 4 weeks. And there are going to be some things, okay? One thing you might notice, okay, is that I think that, all right, this is one of the, there's an auditorium on the other side of that wall that's gorgeous. When we have a moment to just kind of walk around the first floor you have access to, the second floor you have access to, and anything else you need a key to get to, and a staff member can help you get there. But right next door is an auditorium. We had an open house here in April. And every agency that's going to move into this campus was here. And one of the things we learned about the May-Lee State Office Complex, first of all, May-Lee is the oldest member who worked the longest in terms of her age and years of service for the state of California in our history. So this building complex is named for May-Lee. There's some pillars outside in the courtyard and you can learn a little bit more about her. Gracious woman and incredible dedication to public service here. But what we learned is that this is the largest campus of its type, meaning zero net emissions. This is the largest campus of its type as a government building in the country. I can't prove that claim, but that claim was made in the room right next door, and I heard it. I was a witness. And so the lights go off when there's no movement. Right? And so good. The planet needs that, so take one for the planet. Also, the temperature is set at 72. And we can't make it less than 72. So you may think about what you want to wear tomorrow if it gets a little warm in here today. Some of us like it at 68 and it's going to be 72. So that's how it's going to be. Another thing I'd like to point out to everybody is that camera back there on the wall is capturing the screen of the commission table. And it's for whatever reason, and Amarjot would know the answer and it doesn't matter. It's not going to zoom in on speakers as you speak. So that will be, when we speak at this table, that will be the picture that is seen. And I want those of you who are sitting along this side of the table to see yourselves there and know that there are people who can see your computer screens because that's being projected. So, just word to the wise, and I'll leave it at that. So the other thing is, I want to just check the back row. Can you hear us speaking? Sort of. Okay. Okay. So teach your voices, my friends. And in this meeting, we have not yet gotten the mics that are picking up everything. Truly, the people on Zoom can hear rustling papers. So there is no whisper that they won't be able to hear. Just another word to the wise. And right outside that door, they won't be able to hear you, just so you know. But it's, so we're gonna need to project, and by our next meeting, the microphones will be picking up and projecting what's happening in this side of the room to that side of the room. Just one of the things that we're figuring out as we go. And I'm not making enough movement up here to turn on the lights, so forgive me. So let's see. Oh, and I just, for the rest of you that are here, for everybody that's here, in terms of lunch, there will be a cafe out in our lobby area in a couple of months. There will be a food court of some kind across the outdoor courtyard. And in the meantime, there are lovely tables that are under the awnings across the courtyard and also in the building just across the courtyard to have your lunch. There aren't that many walkable restaurants around here. There's a McDonald's on your way into Richards, but I don't recommend it. I'm just saying. But Grubhub and Urban Eats and other of those kinds of food delivery systems will deliver your food right outside this building. The address is 651 Bannon Street. So if you want to place an order and pick it up and eat at any of the tables out there, you're welcome to do so. But that's and we've put together a group order for commissioners orders. And I think you still have about an hour to put your order in if you want that. That will arrive. And we are not going to eat lunch in the building. We've also been told with the Department of General Services owns and operates this building. And that's new for us. We've moved into the Borg and incredible. Thank you. Somebody at the table knows what that means. All right, that's good. We have such an incredible, opportunity here with incredible services, and everything about this is wonderful. But if we spill it, we're hiring the cleaners to come in and clean it. So we'd like to just try to eat in spaces that are easy to clean up. The second floor has some tables and chairs where you can also eat. The stairwell is just at the end of this hall. So that's what I needed to say about the building. Have I forgotten anything about the building? I'm looking over there. Okay, good. I also just wanted to say happy day after Juneteenth. I think it's important to just name this and call it, we have this celebration now, Juneteenth, which commemorates June 19th, 1865, when Union General Gordon Granger arrived in Galveston, Texas, to announce the end of the Civil War and the emancipation of enslaved African Americans. It took over 2 years for the news of freedom to reach all enslaved people due to resistance to the change. At first, Juneteenth was celebrated primarily in Texas and has grown into a nationwide observance. President Joe Biden signed the Juneteenth National Independence Day Act into law on June 17th, 2021. Counties and the federal government, I believe, I don't know about the federal government, but many organizations are now taking that day as a holiday. We're hoping the state will follow along as a very important day to remember its significance in American history. And that we need to continue to have the reminder of freedom and to remember the struggles and the sacrifices of those who fought and those who continue to fight for a more equitable and inclusive society. So happy day after Juneteenth. The last thing I'd like to do, eating into your time, commissioners, I'm sorry, is just announce some new hires for the building. Richard Ariola started February 12th. That's an office technician in the certification division. And Laura Hiller started March 1st as an information technology associate in the IT division. Sophia Sison started April 15th as an office technician in the certification division. Vanessa Avila arrived in April as a staff services analyst in certification. Laura Feliciano started May 7th as an office assistant in certification. Certification has made some hires. This is good. This is good. We've got to get credentials processed, no doubt about that. Deborah Ferguson started as a staff services analyst in the Division of Professional Practices. And Marisa Luna Lopez started June 21st as a consultant in teacher preparation. We'll be working with the performance assessment team. You're likely to see her here with us in the room presenting on items with Amy and her team. She has a doctorate in and is a native of the Central Valley. She's a resident from Merced County, graduated from Merced High School, CSU Stanislaus, and UC Davis. Her master's at CSU Stanislaus was in curriculum and instruction with a focus on multilingual education. Her doctorate at UC Davis in the Candel program was in educational leadership. Her master's project was titled Speak Up, Developing Academic Discourse Through Literacy Skills for the Middle School Common Core Classroom. And her dissertation was titled Critical Race Counter Stories, Testimonies and Platicas with Latina Teachers in Rural Central California. So you'll have a chance to see her in the room and welcome her to the team that will staff that end of the table for a good portion of your agenda. And that concludes my report.
Do any commissioners have items to report?
So ready to push the button for any of you that were in the other building. Thank you. And I feel like a little kid. I'm an early childhood person, but I feel like I'm in a new room and a new playground, and I want to touch everything. So I'll keep moving around so that the lights stay on. Thank you for commemorating Juneteenth as the commissioner for the community colleges. Our community college district has been celebrating Juneteenth for some years. It is a day for celebration, but it's also a day for reflection. to support authentic independence and success, and to support progress and take action. And in that regard, I just have two items. One is action that this commission has been doing for over a year in conjunction with the Department of Education with the Universal Pre-Kindergarten Mixed Delivery Quality and Access Work Group that I've been a member of. And I just wanted to let you know that the recommendations have now been put in here. It was an amazingly diverse and broad group, which means lots of people had a lot of ideas about a lot of things. And the recommendations are in certain categories that I think will really help us keep in not only in communication, but working collaboratively with the Department of Education about community engagement and partnerships with a focus on equity, workforce recruitment and professional learning, high quality pre-K curriculum, then also facilities and operations and advocacy to really look at a mixed delivery system for our youngest California citizens. And then the second one is just, again, I'm trying to stay brief here. The Child Development Permit Work Group, which has been incredibly collaborative and also complex, has just finished its year of meeting together. The group, again, is incredibly diverse, and it's just conducted its final meeting. So we'll be able to hear that, I think, coming up in our next board meeting. Really, the charge there of both revising the permit, which it was time to do, but also to connect it with the P3 credential and with the early childhood education TPEs and upcoming TPA. Stay tuned. It's we have a very diverse state, and we're going to try to bring that workforce here into the full light of the public education system. So thank you.
Morning, everyone. Thank you for acknowledging our graduates. They are very unique. As a mom of a 2021 high school graduate who kind of lost their senior year, I've heard him talk about the freshmen at his college, and they're a different breed of folks. So those experiences play out and will play out in our lives as we continue. So thank you for acknowledging that. And also thank you for acknowledging Juneteenth. That is a special day that I know I and my family have celebrated for many years. And so having a day, and I took a day to really celebrate and got together with a group of African-American women and just had some great time together yesterday. So just acknowledging that and having taken some time during the day to talk about Juneteenth with that group of women was very powerful as well, and how we've celebrated over the years. So just acknowledging that. I do have a few updates from the California Department of Education. Just to, I hope I don't step on your toes, Haiti. I find that we often have similar conversations. But just I want to put out publicly, so we've gone through our mathematics materials adoption process. We're in the midst of that process now. We have put out a call for reviewer applications. And so this is an opportunity for educators across our state to be part of this adoption process, review some of the submissions that have been made, and weigh in, give some feedback, both to the publishers and to the public about the quality of materials that are coming through, particularly tied to our new math framework and our new mathematics adoptions. I do want to encourage folks to consider to apply to become an instructional materials reviewer. Updates on National Board. I like to do that each time we come together, just to let you know that the total number of subsidy teacher reports has been 3,420. Total number of incentive teachers cohort 1 and 2, a total of 2,124 teachers that are participating in national board that weren't before this incentive and subsidy program. So just highlighting that. Let's see, for as of March 2024, and estimated for 2024 teachers, we'll get another 413 teachers coming into the national board program, and 251 previously certified national board teachers are participating in the maintenance of their certification program. And so these funds that have been set aside by the legislature to support this program really are making a difference. Again, these folks are receiving their incentive because they are nationally board certified and are working in high priority areas. So very powerful, not just for our teachers, for their reflective practice, but the impact on our students. Reminder, California Assessment Conference is coming. It will be in Riverside this year, October 15th through the 17th. And that impacts everyone across our state as well, all of our educators. So please consider presenting, but then also consider attending the California Assessment Conference. We just hosted on June 11th and 12th the California Dyslexia Initiative Conference. And we'll be talking a little bit more about California Dyslexia grant program for teacher preparation programs. So much of our work that we should be talking about collectively. There are pieces that CDE has, and pieces that CTC has, CCE has. I mean, there's so many different agencies that are really focusing on a lot of similar things. One, the Dyslexia Initiative, but literacy across the board, mathematics across the board, computer science across the board. So I just want to highlight the need for continued coherent conversations. The work, Mary, that you're doing impacts the work that we at the California Department, the CTC is doing, impacts the work that we're doing here at the department as well. And we want to make sure that our efforts are not in vain and that they are, you know, I love that the idea of Thanos with the rings and kind of all of that power going to one place. That's Thanos was evil, but there's power in coming together is what I'm highlighting. So let's see, any other, I do want to let folks know that the Bilingual Teacher Professional Development Program, BTPDP, those request for applications will be coming soon. So we're looking forward to expanding that program as well. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Other commissioners? I'm looking around the table. It's Commissioner Cardenas.
There's somebody online that probably also has their hand up.
Oh, yes.
Want to address them first?
Sure. Commissioner Pavri, why don't you go ahead?
Thanks so much. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to your new digs. Sorry I can't join you. Looks like a lovely room, and I'm sure the transition's been a lot of work, so thank you all. I also wanted to add my comments around Juneteenth, and firstly wish everyone a very happy Juneteenth. The CSU celebrated Juneteenth last week up in Sacramento. The celebration was hosted by Sacramento State, which, if you are not aware, has been just recently named by the state legislature as the state's first Black serving higher education institution. We're extremely proud of that. Our Juneteenth symposium was designed to elevate Black and African American students in the CSU and their academic journeys. And I also wanted to share the word that Sacramento State has also launched the first Black Honors College, and they are recruiting students right now. And they were also recently selected to be the home of our system-wide office for Black student success and Black excellence. Last year, you may be aware, the CSU had a task force that released a report on Black student success and Black excellence, which lays out 13 recommendations to better serve Black and African American students in our system. And we are absolutely committed and dedicated to adhering to these recommendations. Our campuses have completed a self-assessment inventory based on these recommendations, and each of our campuses has identified key action items to work on. And the system has devoted a good deal of resources to help facilitate that work. Within educator preparation, our education deans have had 2 summits around our Black Student Success Report, and we are working jointly in also furthering these recommendations across our educator prep programs. So wanted to share that report, and again, happy Juneteenth, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. I will try to project as much as I can. I usually like to stand up and walk around when I project, so I'm not going to do it right now, but I'll keep the light on if I do. So first of all, I just want to say that this is I think a beautiful time just to really reflect and to celebrate, even if it was a big win or a little win. I think we haven't taken a deep breath, right? We're always running, just talking about moving in here. We never get that time to just stop. And if you look around, if you had the opportunity to watch our TKs, our kinders, those are probably some of the best graduations. Seeing them all with their pictures. I think I still have my daughters, but also our adult students, our School for Adults who receive their GED, receive their diplomas. I think we often forget them as well and the accomplishments they've made, juggling everything that they do. But just take a time to reflect and really enjoy the moment. I know this year I had the other side as a parent. I also had my child graduate from community college as a transfer student. And so there's also that component as well, right? Our higher ed graduations. And this year was a very significant year. A lot of changes, a lot of impact, a lot of people that weren't able to speak as a valedictorian. So there was just a lot of impact that occurred for our students. But the excitement that I have is that our students are advocating, they're asking for change, they're taking part, they're doing something action, they're just not talking. So that's what I'm really hopeful for. And so with that said, I also wanted to celebrate our student liaison, RJ Ronald Wicks, who also graduated as well. I know he's not here with us, but that's a huge celebration for him to be in the profession. Just meeting all of our student liaisons, I'm just, the teachers, the educators that they're going to become, the leaders that they are, it's just really exciting. And I just want to report that I was able to attend the WACAC seat at the table here held in Sacramento. WACAC is the Western Association for College Admission and Counseling. And so this event took place, and I actually got to connect. I don't know if you've ever met Catalina Cifuentes. She is the outgoing president of WACAC, but she's also on the Student Aid Commission as a commissioner. But she has involved a lot of school counselors and also higher ed folks. And so at this event that was hosted here in Sacramento across from the Capitol, there was people from all over, right? They had a college fair on day one. And when I was walking around the college fair, I thought, what a great opportunity for us as a commission to start recruiting young students who are going into college to come into our profession. So that was just an idea that I had when I was there. But the other thing that was happening there was all these college partners from private universities to community colleges having these conversations of how to remove these barriers for our students. And so this was a great conversation, but there was also conversations about the PPS standards. And so for me, I was excited because they're trying to figure out how to interweave our new standards with really highlighting college and career and making sure that our school counselors, that all of our educators are aware that these standards exist and how we can implement them. And so there was this topic, and again, there was the topic of AI, which everyone was really into, and also financial aid. We all know the debacle around financial aid, but there was a lot of talk about solutions. And the last part was connecting parents and making connections, because a lot of our students are really questioning why should they go to college, right? And because of that questioning, especially with the enrollment that's occurred, a lot of students were on waiting lists. They weren't sure where they're going to go. They didn't have financial aid. The students are a little confused. I think the deadline was June 15th for a lot of students. Some were June 1st. It used to be a May 1st. But students are not sure where they're going to go still. They're still waiting for financial aid packages. They're still really unsure. And so with that, we want to make sure that we connect our students, we help them out through this process, and we try to remove as many barriers as possible, but we bridge them with higher ed folks. Just like Commissioner Cotton had mentioned, there's all this work going on, but when we work as a collective, we can really help our students move forward. So if you have an opportunity, there will be a national conference in Los Angeles on September 26th to the 28th. I think it's a great opportunity for us as a commission to engage with higher ed folks, with folks from the high schools, to really find out how we can remove barriers for our students, but also to introduce them into this opportunity of education. I just want to say thank you everyone for being here, and just I think this is an exciting time right now.
Any other commissioners before we move to our liaisons?
I just wanted to, I forgot to mention one thing, and thank you for congratulating RJ. The application for the student liaison position is open again. These years go by very quickly when we only have 6 meetings together. RJ will be with us, we hope, in August, but that's probably his last meeting. So we are seeking applications for the educator preparation liaison. And I think we have one in, but what's the deadline? Beginning of July, in the next few weeks. Any promising candidate in any credential area, please encourage them to apply. The application is on our website. Thank you.
Commissioner Rodriguez.
Liaison. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay? So last month, the state board approved 995 community school grants, bringing the total number of community schools in our state to over 2,000. There will be a final round of implementation grant funding allocated next year. As a reminder, teachers are key interest holders in community school implementation, supporting safe and welcoming school environments and culturally relevant project-based instruction. Special thank you to the CDE for processing an incredible number of applications, and to the statewide system of technical assistance supporting so many school and LEA communities to implement the whole child education through Community Schools Partnership Program. I'm not sure if anyone here was able to attend, but last week grantees gathered in Hollywood for the Community Schools Summit, which I hear was an incredible event. And on another note, just a few weeks ago, the Reading Difficulties Risk Screener Selection Panel, which Commissioner Cotton talked about or mentioned, posted an invitation to submit reading difficulty screening instruments to the panel for consideration and potential inclusion to the state's approval list for use for LEAs to screen all kindergarten through grade 2 students annually beginning 25-26 school year. Screening instruments must be submitted for consideration by August 30th, 2024. The state board will approve the instruments for use by December 2024. And so that's the state board report, but I wanted to add on the national board front that I completed my maintenance of certificate. Don't know how I did. But something about performance-based and portfolio work that we do as teachers, and hopefully that we encourage our students to do as well, right? To be reflective about their learning and their thinking. I have a credential to teach history, ELA, and Spanish. I tested for Spanish and ELA, and I'm prepared. I have the content and pedagogy for history. And I make that distinction because of the work that we do here, that just because I can pass a test, that doesn't mean that I can teach if I don't have the preparation. So because I have a credential, this last school year, I was told to teach an English 10 class, and then it switched to English 9. This was like a day before school started. So with my world history classes, so, like one in this bunch, which, I said, I don't have neither the content nor pedagogy. I'll do the best that I can. And so then at semester, it switched to an English 10 class. So English 9, English 10. And what I did is I thought, what do I do when I know that I don't know, right? I go to the source, which is for me, National Board Certification. So I pulled out the standards for ELA and registered for my credential and did a lot of the work. I took the assessment last week. And when I was driving up to San Diego to take the assessment, my brother said, "Good luck, sis." And I said, whatever happens, I will learn what I need to know to be an accomplished teacher. And I left the exam knowing some things, but also knowing that I need to learn this. I want to go back and do this, right? And it fed my desire to continue being better for my students. And so I really encourage National Board Certification. It's, in the videotaping for both ELA and maintenance and certificate that I started questioning, why am I doing this? What do I need to learn, right? And in my reflection, I thought, I really need to update my knowledge, my content knowledge on the Holocaust and genocide, right? Because what I know is what I learned years ago. And so I really need to update. So, and I committed in my reflection that this summer, I would apply for some seminars. And next week, I'll be going to USC for a Genocide and Holocaust conference, summer collaborative for California teachers, which I'm very excited about. And Superintendent Tony Thurman, I believe, will be there as well. So it's learning, right? And it's continuous improvement. And I can't stress enough how much performance-based assessments help me grow, right? Because I set a goal for my students, for myself, and just continue growing. So thank you.
Commissioner Rodriguez, for the work that you do and the work you continue to do, and for the reminder of the importance of that often quoted phrase, lifelong learning. I think you just described that so well.
Liaison report.
Oh, yes, okay.
I am the liaison to the Committee on Special Education.
Thank you.
And I often forget and then have to come back to this later in the agenda. Happy Juneteenth to everyone. I wanted to just echo what I've heard around the table about National Board, the best self-reflective process, the best process for any educator out there. And it doesn't matter what you do at a school, as long as you have a credential, you should be going through the National Board process. I especially want to say, as somebody who is now officially older.
Commissioner Davis, can you use that teacher voice, please?
As someone who is officially older, I didn't want to say that too loud. I can tell you that the persistence in the profession, this is the thing that kept me in education. And I just finished my National Board process. I also am a recipient of that subsidy. And I want to say that I have been supporting teachers through that process through Stanford for at least 5 years now. And it is one of the most rewarding things that I've ever done in education. One little caveat about that, and then to my report. One of the teachers who just worked, she's a president of her teacher local association. She approached me at one of the CTA conferences recently and said, we're applying for a community schools grant, 6 of them actually, for 6 of our schools. And I go, okay. She goes, can you help me with that? And I looked at her and I go, I don't help you with, I don't work in your district. And so we sat down for 7 hours and we rewrote a lot of stuff and kind of crunch numbers in a different way than some of her colleagues in that collective group, and they won all 6 of those grants. So I know intimately about that celebration in Hollywood because I was invited to it and I couldn't go because graduation was the same week. And so anyway, congratulations to all those teachers. And that to say that that contact was through by national board networks. And so as a facilitator in that, and in that niche group of BIPOC facilitators and candidates that I've worked with, we've been able to establish a statewide network so all of us don't feel alone anymore. Often we're the only ones in our districts or in our schools, and it's kind of lonely. And so we've been able to find each other, and it's just, again, something that I want to shout out to everyone here. If you have not started a national board process, like Commissioner Rodriguez said, it's not about passing, it's not about certifying, it's about if you go through this process and you just do it one time, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so much of a better teacher. I see how I can just improve. Now, most people go for the certification. I never got into national board to be certified, ever. And so that I want to share. So onto my committee, Committee on Accreditation. So on 5/2, we had a meeting. And I know that there has been a meeting since then, and I was unable to attend that meeting, but I wanted to talk about some of the landmark and historic things that happened at that meeting. So Concordia University got a PPS counseling intern pathway approved. Imperial County Office of Education has a clear administrative credential program now. LA Unified School District, near and dear to my heart, because I was a kid in LA Unified Schools. They just got a clear nurse services credential program approved, and they have 150 nurses in the pipeline. And one of the things that I shared at the Committee on Accreditation to the LA Unified folks was, as a homeless kid in that system, the school nurse was my doctor. You know, that was where I got the medical care. And so if I had a scratch, a bruise, an owie or something, that person in that nurse's office, and often it was a health clerk and not a nurse. I don't know that I've ever met a school nurse in that system, but that person helped in that situation. And so the fact that they have 150 teachers in the pipeline is a big watershed moment, because such a niche group, such a needed group. So they said that their goal was to get a school nurse, a registered school nurse at every, a credentialed school nurse at every school site in the system. And that's incredible. San Jose State, another historic thing, became the first university approved to for a preliminary residency pathway, being the first P3 credential offering institution. And so they said in their presentation that you didn't necessarily need a CBEST, but you needed a bachelor's degree. And then they kind of went through, or the CSET, they went through the process with us. And it was just like one of those watershed moments, because it was one of those moments where we had all of this work here at the commission. Thank you to staff. Thank you to all of us around the table who had been in the groups that brought that credential to light. But San Jose State was #1 and highlighted there. And I actually said that I'd probably come and visit the program with Kate Brown at some point. And Rosemary and Poonam were thanked and thanked and thanked and thanked and thanked. So I just wanted to throw that out there. The San Diego County Office of Education was the second program approved to do the P3 credential as well. And they thanked Poonam again and staff, but then they said that their commission sponsored and or attended focus group sessions and informational sessions and key constituents coming together was one of the best experiences that they had as a college, looking inward and also looking out toward the community. And then the P3 program at Fresno State was breathtaking. I'm just going to say, if you've not had a chance to look at their website, and there's a little bias here, and not that I know anyone at Fresno State, but the bias was Every single candidate that comes through their program gets mentors with an S, not one, but several mentors that really will help shepherd them through the program if needed. So what I wrote here, the P3 ECE Specialist Instruction Credential Program was the third program to be approved. Commissioner Pavri was thanked for her efforts as well. And the unique features of the Fresno State program that are of note are that they have navigators. They establish candidate advocates, and then they have district partnerships. So they have 3 different points of support for each candidate. Okay? And it's customized to the candidate based on where they're coming from. So if they're coming from a child development background or preschool or a Head Start, then they get a different type of mentorship, I guess, than somebody coming out of a bachelor's program or somebody who is an older adult doing this for the first time. So they have these supports in place to get people shepherded through. And I just thought, wow, what a special program. Because if I had that when I was getting my credential, I think I might be even a better teacher than I am. So that kudos to them, hats off to them. And this is a model program. And I think that a lot of other programs need to look at when they're putting together their proposal for a program. And so that means that we have representation in the north, the central part of California, and the southern part of California as well to offer the P3 credentials. Cal State University Long Beach also did this wonderful thing where they have a single subject dance program, and that was just approved, and thanks to Prop 28. And Sacramento, also the same thing, Sac State has a theater and dance program. Cal State Fullerton also has a new theater program thanks to those Prop 28 funds. There was discussion and action on institutions that were not in compliance with accreditation timelines, discussions of Cal State University Long Beach's 7th year report, site team visit reports, revisits, stipulations and reports taken by San Francisco Unified School District on their accreditation. And that concludes my report.
Davis. All right, colleagues, I now recess the general session and move to the Educator Preparation Committee. Commissioner Cardenas, will you please convene the committee?
Yes, good morning. I'd like to call the June 2024 meeting of the Educator Preparation Committee to order. We have 6 agenda items. 4 of these items are scheduled for today. The remaining 2 items are scheduled for tomorrow. The first item today is 4A, Initial Institutional Approval, Stage 2, Eligibility Requirements for Ventura Unified School District. This item is being presented by Poonam Beatty. This is an action item. Ms. Beatty, will you please begin?
Good morning, Commissioners. Item 4A presents Ventura Unified School District's responses to the Stage 2 eligibility requirements for the Commission's consideration and possible approval. Ventura Unified is seeking initial institutional approval for eligibility to offer 2 programs. The first being a teacher induction program, and the second being a clear administrative services credential or admin induction program. Ventura Unified has over 15,000 students, which and within their district, they have 14 elementary schools, 4 TK K through 8 schools, 4 middle schools, and 5 high schools. The IIA Stage 2 submission is comprised of responses to the 12 eligibility requirements and the 2 initial program preconditions. You'll find a link to Ventura Unified's IIA Stage 2 submission on the 2nd page of this item. On the 3rd page of this item, you'll find the IIA 5 stages chart, and it has the current stage of the process highlighted. So approval of Stage 2 does not permit Ventura Unified to offer the proposed programs, as more specific information about program design is provided in subsequent stages of the process. The majority of this agenda item includes summaries and excerpts from Ventura Unified's IA Stage 2 submission, and that includes the staff recommendation of a line for criteria 1 through 9, which is across pages 4 through 7 of this item, And then for criteria 10 through 12, as noted at the top of page 8, those are summarized for the commission, but do not include a staff recommendation. And those summary of those criteria are across pages 8 through 13. One specific note in regards to criterion 11 is that we require an institution to post a third-party notification on their website, noting that they are seeking IIA. And to date, we have not received any comments regarding Ventura Unified's pursuit of IIA. The next portion of the item is specific to the summaries of their responses to the 2 initial program preconditions, and those are across pages 13 to 15. In conclusion, after considering the information provided in this agenda item, staff recommends that the commission grant eligibility to Ventura Unified School District, which would allow the institution to move forward to stage 3 of the IIA process. Staff is available to answer any process questions, and we have representatives joining us virtually on screen from Ventura Unified. We have Gina Wolowitz, Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, and Nanette Cassell, Coordinator of New Teacher Support and Induction. They are here to answer any questions you might have about Ventura Unified's IIA Stage 2 submission. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now open for public comment. If there are members of the public that would like to make a comment, please notify the meeting moderator by submitting a request card or by clicking on the raise hand icon if participating through Zoom. Press *9 if participating by phone. Public comment is limited to 2 minutes per speaker. Recording secretary, are there any public comments? Public comment period for this item is now closed. Do commissioners have any questions or comments on this item? Commissioner Clack.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you for our guests on Zoom who are here to answer questions. And I have a question related to our item, page 12 on our item. And I don't know if it's something that you're able to answer now, but it would definitely be something that I would be interested in hearing more detail about in our next stage if we're going forward. And that is regarding the two questions, kind of 2 parts. In our summary, it says that there will be 50 part-time beginning teacher mentors. And I'm curious about what part-time means. Does that mean that these mentors will be part-time with classroom assignments and part-time assigned as mentors, or are these people that are just part-time to the district and the only thing they're doing is serving as mentors? I was hoping for some clarity around that. And kind of related to that question is the last bullet in that segment talks to a 1-to-1 mentor coach candidate ratio. And so again, if there could be more clarity around the part-time, so if you're a part-time mentor, but you only have 1 person you're coaching, how exactly is that working? And in what situations do you anticipate that the ratio would be greater than 1-to-1? So that's my first question. I don't know if you can answer or clarify that now, or if that would be something for later.
So with that, I want to provide Ventura Unified the opportunity to be able to speak to that. But Commissioner Klatt, you're absolutely right that this is where they are right now. So it could be as they get into subsequent stages and they start looking specifically at the common standards, and especially in stage 4, the program standards, that they'll continue to flesh this out. So it could be that what they finalize at that point might look a little different than what's here. But I do want to provide them the opportunity to talk about what is written right now and maybe where they're going in the future.
Okay, that would be helpful. And or again, I'm happy. That would definitely just be something I would want more detail on next time. So is that something that you want to respond to now?
We're happy to clarify what we currently do, but as stated, we will be providing that detailed explanation in future rounds should we be approved. But we're happy to provide, Nanette can speak to the fact of what we currently have in place.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So currently we have a 1-to-1 model, and when that number increases, so it might be sometimes 2 candidates to 1 mentor, and only in conditions like that, it's usually when we have a full-time release like a teacher on special assignment who has the capacity to take on more candidates. So currently, that's what's in place now. And moving forward, like Poonam said, we're fleshing out what our model will look like. We kind of anticipate going to having people with much more time and capacity to get in and observe so that the observation and reflection cycle can occur more frequently. And so with that, we don't quite know what that will look like and how we will do that, but we have some employment ideas, how we'll support them through the positions that they're hired under. So.
And specifically to answer your question about, you had a specific question about the part-time mentors specifically. So those folks would either be typically in a classroom environment for the classroom program, for the teacher induction program. They would be working a partial assignment. So for example, at secondary with the specialized single subject credentials, we want to ensure that we have subject matter experts serving as those mentors. And so that may be that they're teaching maybe a few periods a day and then on release for the other time frame to ensure that we have that subject matter expert as the mentor.
And thank you for that clarification. And I definitely appreciate the thinking about the time and how that time is going to come out of that mentor's day. I think that's really important. And then I'll just follow up with one more question. And again, this might just be something for later going forward. But there was also discussion about, in addition to having a mentor, that candidates would have you called it a supporting colleague. And I wasn't sure if the intention there was for a supporting colleague only with candidates with an offsite mentor, or would all candidates have the idea of a supporting colleague? So at some point, I'd love to hear more about that connection and how that will be maintained, because that seemed interesting, but I was a little unclear about how that would work. So that's my last question. And again, if you have anything you want to say now, but I understand we might just have to hear more about that later.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to answer, and also the opportunity that it may shift as we get into the deeper program design. However, I would say that supportive person is when they have an offsite mentor to ensure that they have that access readily available to them at all times, because we know that our newer administrators and our newer teachers, we want to ensure that they have a really high level of support and access.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Klein, are there any other commissioners? Commissioner Klein?
So Ventura partly justifies their need for the program by presenting the projected numbers of the retiring teachers and administrators for the upcoming years. However, while the number of retiring teachers and administrators grows continuously year after year, the projected enrollment in their proposed program does not. So how does Ventura Unified plan to sustain these programs if the enrollment numbers are expected to decline on the outset? And how do the projected retirement numbers impact the availability of qualified mentors for these programs?
They might be frozen.
I could hear everything you said. Even though I was frozen with my eyes closed, I could still hear the question. So thank you. Yes, so we do already have a group of mentors that we work with, as you can see, with a large number of new teachers that we have been sustaining over the past several years, because we do have a very seasoned veteran workforce in our teaching staff specifically. And so we do feel like we have the strong capacity. We've been building it in prior years. So this isn't something new that we would be creating that capacity for. For better and for worse, we've had a pretty significant declining enrollment in our county and specifically in our district. And so we have seen that on the horizon. And so we have been building our capacity with our current induction processes to ensure that we have a breadth of mentor possibilities, so that we have, for lack of a better word, like that bench to pull from should some of those people who are currently serving in that capacity choose to retire in the process of this induction accreditation.
The other Another question is, you've been partnering up until now with the county office, correct? And I'm just curious, how is this going to impact kind of that ecosystem around induction program within Ventura County altogether? If you are then creating your own induction, what's the impact going to be?
Thank you. So we would continue to use them as our thought partners. Like, for example, we attended the induction conference this year, and they were there as well at the conference, and we work alongside them in many capacities. In addition, there are other unified districts within our county that offer their own induction programs, and so we do feel that it won't have a significant impact on that ecosystem. We feel like it will be sustainable both for the county and both for the individual districts that have been operating their own programs for quite some time.
Any other commissioners? All right, so this is an action item. Do I have a motion to either grant eligibility to Ventura Unified School District to move forward to stage 3 or to deny eligibility? Commissioner Simmons?
I move that we grant eligibility.
Commissioner Simmons motions to grant. Do I have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Yusoff? Is there any further discussion? Recording secretary, call for the vote. Each member please respond with aye, nay, or abstain.
Brown.
Aye.
Martinez.
Aye.
Earl Compton. Aye. Tom Coon.
Aye.
Cliff Davis. Michael De La Torre.
Aye.
Rosita Bueno Shire.
Aye.
Anna Howard.
Aye.
Tommy Clark.
Aye.
Ira Lit.
Aye.
Eddie Simmons.
Aye.
Tom Newdall.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Beatty, Ms. Wallowitz, and Ms. Purcell. We appreciate you being here, and we look forward to seeing you for the next stage. Our next item is 4B. Final report on the 2021 Dyslexia Grants to Preparation Programs. This item is being presented by Lynn Larson. This is an information item.
Give us a second.
Good morning, commissioners. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, good morning, Ms. Larson.
Awesome.
Thank you for being here. And I wasn't sure if you're in person or on Zoom, so glad to see you here on Zoom.
I'm joining you here from sunny Southern California, so thank you.
Welcome, thank you.
Good morning,
Item.
commissioners.
Ms. Larson, would you please begin?
Good morning, commissioners. It is my pleasure to be here today to present the 2021 Dyslexia Grants to Preparation Program's final report. This agenda item provides the Dyslexia Grant Program implementation and budget data for the project period of the grant. Assembly Bill 128 of the Budget Act of 2021 provided the Commission a one-time general fund budget appropriation of $2 million for the 2021-22 fiscal year for competitive grants to teacher preparation programs to update program curriculum and course offerings to align with the universal teacher performance expectations, the updated education specialist TPEs, to include pedagogy on dyslexia and research-based practices that support teaching students with dyslexia, and to incorporate the California Dyslexia Guidelines. The Dyslexia Grant provided the opportunity for one-time grant awards of up to a maximum of $21,000 to eligible institutions of higher education or local education agencies with commission-approved teacher preparation programs. Each eligible institution could apply for $7,000 per education specialist, multiple subject and/or single subject teacher preparation programs. 25 proposals were funded for a total of $421,803. 16 were granted to IHEs and 9 to LEAs. Please see Appendix B in the item for a list. The sections in the report referenced in the agenda item include information on the following topics: background information on the grant program, quantitative data, qualitative data, and a grant program summary. All 25 dyslexia grantees submitted a report detailing budget expenditures and grant activities. 20 grantees received grant funds for education specialist programs, 20 for multiple subject programs, 18 for single subject programs, and 3 for dual credential programs, for a total of 61 credential programs positively impacted by dyslexia grant funds. Table 1, found on page 3 of the report, shows that 80% of grantees indicated grant activities were complete as of May 2024. Grant activities not completed were related to work and final approvals for updated courses that were still in process. Commission staff will continue to track progress until all grant activities are complete. Table 2, found on page 4 of the report, provides data related to grant expenditures for grantees who have spent all their grant funds. Approximately $15,000 in grant funds have yet to be spent. As you can see from Table 2, the majority of funds were spent for education specialist programs, with multiple subject next, then single subject. Most grant funds were spent in the salaries category, followed by stipends, then consultants. Salary funds were spent on faculty who completed planning, curriculum design, course and syllabi design or redesign, and program execution. Funds in the stipends category were spent on faculty attending professional development, beyond contract work for faculty such as course and program development work, overtime or meetings, and project coordinator stipends. Qualitative data was also collected from grantees via narrative responses. In the area of alignment with the universal TPEs and the new education specialist TPEs, programs reported that, although they were aligned when mandated to do so, grant funds provided opportunities to add updated information into courses and for re-examination and refined alignment across courses and programs related to dyslexia and the California Dyslexia Guidelines. As described on page 4 and in Appendix A, grantees reported in their narrative responses about the inclusion of numerous resources related to dyslexia across courses and programs. To provide the most recent content related to dyslexia, grantees organized faculty workshops and professional development, including attendance at the International Dyslexia Association Conference. For best practices, a consistent theme shared in the responses centered on the collaborative work of cross-program and course faculty teams. The incorporation of dyslexia content across programs provided a unique opportunity for faculty from different courses and programs to dive deep into content and to come to consensus with a shared vision. Grantees also shared important lessons learned in their work. An unintended outcome reported by one grantee that was during dyslexia assessment training, 10 teacher candidates self-identified as dyslexic and pursued official diagnoses through the Student Disabilities Resource Center. Other lessons learned included the need for course materials to be accessible, the importance of addressing misconceptions about dyslexia, and that revising programs and curriculum, finding appropriate resources, and implementing professional development takes time, and finding that time can be challenging. In summary, the dyslexia grants to preparation programs met the intended outcomes of the authorizing legislation. Thank you for this opportunity, and I am happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. So we will now open up for public comment. There are members of the public that would like to make a comment. Please notify the meeting moderator by submitting a request card or by clicking on the raise hand icon if participating through Zoom. Press *9 if participating by phone. Public comment is limited to 2 minutes per speaker. Recording secretary, are there any public comments? The public comment period for this item is now closed. Do commissioners have any questions or comments on this item? The Commissioner Aubrey.
Thank you. I couldn't find my raise hand. Thank you so much for the report, Lynn. And just wanted to add, since the funding has been over, our CSU Center for the Advancement of Reading and Writing has been working closely with all of the grantees and providing support. And I did want to highlight for everyone, I think many of you are aware of this, our UC CSU Collaborative for Neuroscience, Diversity and Learning has developed dyslexia modules that align directly with the TPD. And so please do use those as a resource. They are available on the UCCSU Collaborative website, and they're building more resources and modules there as well. So just wanted to bring up that continued support.
And those are linked in the Appendix A as one of the resources that was mentioned by several, quite a few grantees actually. So that is linked as a resource.
Thank you for that resource. Any other commissioners? Commissioner Khan?
This is question and statement. From CTC staff standpoint, how do the results of this grant program further support the coherence of the work that CDE is doing with literacy, with the reading screening, and the California Dyslexia Initiative? There's an opportunity here, I think, for some coherent conversations with both higher ed as well as preparation programs, as well as the work that's happening K-12. Just want to highlight and lift up kind of how can we continue to have those coherent conversations, and that they're not conversations that are happening kind of separately. So just again, from CTC staff standpoint, is there any opportunities, or have there been any opportunities, or will there be opportunities for some coherent conversations?
Ms. Larson, would you wish to respond?
I think that's a question more for Aaron or Cheryl to answer from that perspective.
She's making her way up here.
I'll ask the question again. Thank you. No problem. And this is, it is an answer for today, but something just to think about and to continue to kind of work through how do we have these coherent conversations. My question was, from a CTC staff standpoint, how do the results of the grant program further support the coherence with CDE's work around literacy, dyslexia, and screening for reading difficulties?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We've been doing a lot of work together with Nancy Bernelson and so we have had a lot of conversations and continuing collaboration with them. Obviously, you know, Nancy, Dr. Bernelson has played a huge role in our new literacy standards and our TPEs, and continues to be helpful to us. She just recorded a webinar for us on the new standards so that institutions can be familiar with that. But certainly as much collaboration as we can with CDE is really helpful in making sure, as well as very appreciative for the UCCSU Collaborative. We are trying to advertise that everywhere we possibly can, and really encouraging all institutions to use those modules, and they're constantly updating those. We understand there's some coming out this summer for early learners. So we're asking institutions to make sure you see those as well. So there's a lot of collaborative work happening, and we're trying to work hand in glove with them.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Commissioner Brown?
That's a question then, just a comment. Thank you for your question. And thank you for your response, particularly about early learners. So that's what I was going to ask with this new credential, which is a new credential in decades, but also bringing in a new age group. I'm really glad to hear that collaboration. I was going to ask if there's an example, but I see a lot in the best practices that makes really good sense from a developmentally appropriate viewpoint.
Any other commissioners? Well, this is an information item. Oh, you raise your hand, sorry. Commissioner Poverty.
Thank you. I just wanted to also, in light of Commissioner Cotton's question, we have been meeting with CDE staff around really breaking down these silos, and I'm speaking specifically to the CSU and our Center for the Advancement of Reading and Writing, to really look at the literacy roadmap and see the ways in which the professional development that's happening through our county offices and our school districts that there are common threads with the faculty professional learning that we are developing in light of SB 488 as well. So we're really looking for commonalities and themes and shared learning and sharing expertise and resources across PK through educator preparation.
Commissioner Pabry. Are there any other commissioners? Raise their hands. All right, so this is an information item. No action is needed at this time. Thank you very much, Ms. Larson.
Thank you.
I'll get a feel around the room really quick. We're okay doing one more before we go on break? Yes? All right, so item 4C, I'm getting a look. Item 4C. Next, we have item 4C, the update on the 2023 Diverse Education Leaders Pipeline Initiative Grant Program. This item is being presented by Stephanie Gallo and Jasmine Nasser. This is an information item. Ms. Gallo, would you please begin?
Good morning, commissioners. It is our pleasure to be here this morning. Jasmine Nasser and I will present agenda item 4C to provide an update regarding the very competitive 2023 Diverse Education Leaders Pipeline Initiative, also known as the Delpi Grant Program. The Delpi Grant provides one-time grant awards up to $30,000 per participating administrator candidate for local education agencies interested in supporting eligible candidates to pursue an administrative services credential. The purpose of this grant program is to train, place, and retain diverse and culturally responsive administrators to improve pupil outcomes and to meet the needs of California's education workforce. In performing these activities, legislation highly encouraged LEAs to partner with an institution of higher education or nonprofit educational service provider or both as applicable. The request for applications to RFA was released January 12, 2024, and awards were announced May 13th of 2024. 32 applications were received, requesting a total of over $36 million in grant funds to support 1,326 administrator candidates. Ultimately, 10 LEAs were conditionally funded pending receipt of additional information for a total of $9,996,669 in grant funds to support 367 administrator candidates. The table on Appendix A lists the conditionally funded LEAs, their IHE and or nonprofit partners, candidate slots awarded, and grant award amount. Because demand for participation across the state exceeded funding for the Delpi Grant Program, even the conditionally funded grant applicants were ultimately not authorized for all the requested administrator candidates. Since the publishing of this agenda item, all 10 of the conditionally funded LEAs have successfully submitted the requested information and are now fully funded. Mission staff will support grantees by hosting a technical assistance session in the fall and monthly office hour sessions to provide time and space for grantees to share best practices as they implement their new programs. Grantees will submit their first annual reports to the Commission on July 2025. Thank you. We will be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. We will now open up for public comment. If there are members of the public that would like to make a comment, please notify the meeting moderator by submitting a request card or by clicking on the raise hand icon if participating through Zoom or pressing *9. If participating by phone, public comment is limited to 2 minutes per speaker. Recording Secretary, are there any public comments? The public comment period for this item is now closed. The commissioners have questions or comments on this item.
Good morning. Thank you for this exciting report. It's really heartening to hear what interest there was in this great program. Very excited to see results as they come in and hopefully additional support so that more LEAs can participate. I just had an informational question. I was curious if you could just tell me a little bit more about the first two LEAs mentioned, Aspire Firestone Academy, Southern California Consortium, and Northern California Consortium, since they both one for the most number of candidates. Could you tell me a little bit more about those?
They are a consortium of LEA charter schools and traditional public schools. They've partnered with DLI, the Diverse Leadership Initiative, which they've decided to geographically separate these two large consortiums to support different geographical areas across the state. California is huge and we have different needs. And so ultimately they were authorized, they had a strong application clearly, and they've organized their consortium a little bit differently than others. Are there any other questions?
So that was helpful. Actually, I do have one further follow-up question about the folks who did not win the grants. Was it a pretty wide range of geographically and size of LEAs who applied, the 20-odd LEAs who did not receive it?
Yes, both the applicants that received the award and those that did not, it represents the entire state. Densely populated, rural LEAs, those with high free and reduced lunch rates, and those low. So we saw a wide range of applicants.
And just one more follow-up question, which is, can you characterize at all for us what made the winning, how did these 10 LEAs rise to the top in the competitive field? What were the differences between them and the other candidates?
I would say that they demonstrated an understanding of how diverse and culturally competent school leadership would affect their specific people. And many of the awarded grantees had partnerships with IHEs and or nonprofit education providers that seemed very strong in supporting this Delpi program.
Thanks, that's very helpful.
Other commissioners? Commissioner De La Torre?
Yes, thank you. I had a question about the percentages that are represented by the awardees. So for example, were they distributed, what is the percentage distribution of how many, for example, the awards to the Aspire Consortium, and what percentage do they represent of the California schools?
I would have to get back to you. I don't know that off the top of my head. Are you asking in terms of just across state and all the consortium members?
Well, with all of the recipients, I'm just curious to know what percentage went to, was it distributed equitably, all of the applicants? That's my question.
Yes, so ultimately all of the requested slots and those that were awarded, they were reduced by the exact same percentage.
And did those percentages match the percentage of, say, student populations of their populations that they're serving? How does it compare?
No. So all the grantees, they requested a certain number of slots, and they also had to justify their need. And that was the other thing, whether it was a teacher shortage, retirement, whatever reason, they had to provide data in their application to match their request with their data. But ultimately, because the demand was so high, to just treat all the ones that we did award fairly, we reduced those then by the same percentage, but not by a percentage that I think you're suggesting that reflects the LEA's ADA or their student numbers.
So is it possible that some of these institutions over requested, let's say that I might have requested 1,000 slots, and another one that had more student population requested only 500, but yet they were all reduced by the same percentage? Is that possible?
It's completely possible. Honestly, with grantees, sometimes their eyes are a little bit bigger than the reality of implementing a program, as we've seen with other grant applications. And so while we would like to speculate, we didn't really take that into account, but we did again reduce them all by the same amount. And so really what you're asking, we'll see next year once they submit the data to see, were these LEAs able to enroll all the slots. But they've justified it in their applications by providing that local data.
Were there any guidelines provided to the applicants as to how many they could apply for?
Not a specific number, but the guidelines pretty much stated that they have to provide data that justifies their need, and also that they have candidates that are eligible and are interested. So they've had to provide that level of commitment, knowing that they have folks on their staff currently that will fill these slots.
But you also mentioned that not all of the folks would be supported. So these agencies might have had many more candidates that were eligible, but they were limited to this number of slots. I would be interested in knowing what the percentage of the student populations of each of these LEAs, just to see if the funds were awarded equitably. Because my concern is that maybe certain institutions are more savvy about, let me ask for more, even though I have a smaller population that I would support, and that doesn't seem to be equitable.
If I could just answer that quick, the enabling legislation for this grant did not allow us to do what you're asking. So as we're working with individual legislators' offices in future grant programs, that's something we can ask for, but we wouldn't, the law didn't allow us to restrict based on student population.
Right, I understand, but I'm just curious, we can know how many students.
Yeah, we can get you the data, but I just think for future grants, that's something that we can try to work with the legislature on.
Thank you.
May I just add to that also? I apologize. And I heard you very clearly about some may ask for more. And as Steph said, you know, we really take into consideration how they determine their local need and take them at their word. And the other thing about the two consortiums is they aren't all just charter schools, they're also partnering with other LEAs in their areas too. So it's a really large group of potentially diverse administrators and support for diversity in the charter schools and LEAs. So yeah, but we'll get you that data for sure.
And I do appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I understand how they are working in collaboration. I just want to see if there were any measures in place, any protocols to ensure the equitable distribution of these funds to the student populations that they serve.
I wanted to thank the staff for this agenda item, and I'm really looking forward to seeing those first year reports. This is such a critical shortage area in regards to developing culturally competent and diverse administrators. So thank you, and I look forward to it.
Any other commissioners? I just had one comment or a question. Hopefully the consortium also encompasses the Central Valley. I didn't see a representation of the Central Valley. I'm hoping that the consortium maybe encompasses that. And so that's just what was one of my questions. Or any other question? Well, this is an information item. No action is needed at this time. Thank you very much, Ms. Morgado and Ms. Nasser and staff. At this point in time, we are going to go ahead and take a break. What's it, 10 minutes? Be good? 10 minutes, we'll see you back here. Let's make it a 15-minute break. Love it.
Live and learn.
Check it out a little bit. Our last education committee item for today, which is item 4D. I'll check with the ladies. Are we okay to move forward? Yes. Item 4D, the annual report on passing rates of commission approved examinations from 2018-19, 2022-2023. This item is being presented by Mike Taylor. This is an information item. We have Mr. Taylor, I believe it's online.
Yes, he is on right now.
Perfect. I see that Mr. Taylor's on there.
Yes.
This is the information item. Welcome, Mr. Taylor. Can't hear you, sir.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Will you please begin?
Sure, it's nice to be here today with you. That looks like a great room that everybody's in. And one day in the future, I hope to be there with you. This is the annual report on passing rates of commission-approved examinations for the 5 testing years from 2018-19 to 2022-23. And this year, again, I want to start this item in discussion with a conversation about the current role of examinations in teacher credentialing, because it's something that has changed quite a bit in just the last few years. Not very long ago, and for most of the history of the commission, the exams were the requirement. They were what everybody needed to complete in order to meet, say, the basic skills requirement or the subject matter requirement. And in 2021, as you know, the governor signed Assembly Bill 130, which offered some new options for satisfying the basic skills requirement, such as using undergraduate coursework. And it also expanded available options for meeting the subject matter requirement for candidates by allowing them to also use undergraduate academic coursework to meet the requirement, as well as undergraduate academic majors or a combination of coursework and examinations. And these new pathways have really changed the landscape in California of who takes the examinations and who doesn't. And a simple way to put it is, where it used to be that everybody took the examinations, now most candidates don't need to take most examinations. And so you can see in tables 1 and 2 of the agenda item how these numbers have applied just here in the first couple of years of implementation since AB 130. Table 1 shows information about the numbers of credentials issued and how the basic skills requirement was met for those credentials. Now, we don't have all the details available in our system for determining exactly how everybody met the basic skills requirement, but we can do some broad categories. So we know when the basic skills requirement was met by examination, which in this case would have been CBEST or CSET. And then we know when the basic skills requirement was met by an option other than an examination. And in that case, we understand that that's almost always coursework. It's most likely a coursework option. People are using undergraduate coursework to demonstrate that they've met the basic skills requirement if they're not taking one of those exams. So if you look in table 1, this shows information for 2021-22, which was the first year that these options became available under AB 130, and 22-23, which is the most recent year covered by this report. And you can see how those numbers have changed in terms of the ratios between the number of people who meet the basic skills requirement by examination and the number of people who meet the basic skills requirement some other way, so that there's a lot more people meeting that basic skills requirement using coursework now than there was previously. Table 2 shows similar information, but in this case for the subject matter requirement. And when it comes to the subject matter requirement, we do have more information available about exactly how the subject matter requirement was met. So for the, again, the same testing years of 2021-22 and 2022-23, this shows the number of each type of credentials where the subject matter requirement was met by examination. In this case, that would have been CSET, or whether it was met by coursework or some combination of exam and coursework, whether it was met by a degree major, and then some information about recommending IHEs. And again, in this table, you can see as you look at the difference in numbers between 21-22 and 22-23, the way that that ratio has changed, and the number of people meeting the subject matter requirement by coursework or degree majors has really increased, and the number of people meeting the subject matter requirement for examinations is decreasing. Because of these new options for meeting the basic skills requirement and the subject matter requirement, we expect that the number of people taking examinations to meet these requirements are really going to go down over time. They're really, as word gets out and more people become aware that this isn't something the exams aren't something they necessarily need to do, then we expect the numbers of people taking the exams to decline, where they become what I like to call sort of a boutique option for individuals who can't meet these requirements some other way. All right, now talking about our examination systems, the majority of the Commission's examinations are offered year-round on demand. They're at physical testing sites, and now also online proctoring is available for most of our high incidence exams, where examinees can test in their home or office. And we have some great resources available for examinees on the Commission's examinations website that has all the preparation materials for people to use, and tutorials and information specifically about what's being measured, links to registration, lots of helpful information there. And the Commission has a few types of exams. So you've just heard me talk a lot about the basic skills requirements. So historically, we've had skills examinations. And for California, that's meant CBEST, though we've also accepted results of basic skills examinations from other tests. We have subject matter competency examinations, and for us, that means CSET. CSET measures content knowledge in all of the single subject credential areas and multiple subjects, as everyone is aware. We have the Reading Instruction Competence Assessment, or RECA, and we have a number of other assessments, such as CTEL, which is the California Teachers of English Learners exam, and it's used primarily at this point by out-of-state candidates who don't have an English learner authorization who want to teach in California. We have our bilingual specific examinations as part of the CSET World Language Series, and these are used by candidates who want to teach in a bilingual setting. We have the National Evaluation Series exams, known as the NES, and we use specifically their Assessment of Professional Knowledge, or APK. And that's used to satisfy part of the pedagogical portion of the early completion intern option. And finally, we have the California Preliminary Administrative Credential Examination, or CPACE, and this is what we call the exam option for earning a preliminary administrative credential in California, and it replaces an entire program. And we'll talk more about each of these exams as we go on. It's worth noting that only a couple of these exams, specifically RECA and the NES exams, measure anything that happens within a teacher prep program. For the most part, these examinations are completed by people outside of a preparation program and don't measure anything happening inside a preparation program. One last thing to mention before we talk about each of the specific examinations is that for the last 2 years, and by the last 2 years, I mean not the 2 years of this report, but the last 2 years we've all experienced, the 2022 and 23 and 23-24 fiscal years, examinations have been free for examinees in the state of California. We've had fee waivers in place. And so 22-23 is the last year reported in this report. It is also the first year that examinations were free for examinees. So we do think that the examinations fee waivers resulted in higher numbers of exams being taken during the 22-23 fiscal year. But the numbers, overall numbers compared to previous years, you won't see those change very much. And the reason we think is that it's sort of being muted. The effects of these fee waivers are being muted a little bit by the effects of Assembly Bill 130. So at the same time, fewer people are taking exams to meet specific requirements for their credential. More people are taking exams because they're free. And so people who want to add authorizations, have been taking those exams, the CSETs, and people who want to earn an administrative credential have been taking CPACE, et cetera, et cetera. All right, now to talk about each of our individual examinations, starting with the CBEST. This is, as far as I know, the longest running examination program in California state history. And it may not be with us very much longer, but as we mentioned, a lot of people not as many people need to take CBEST anymore. In fact, most credential candidates no longer need to take it. But to look at what's going on with CBEST right now, I think a good place to start is Table 5, which is on page 13 of the agenda item. And this shows the first time and cumulative passing rates for examinees who took all 3 sections of CBEST, so reading, writing, and math, for the 5-year cohort from 2018 to 2023, and for each of those individual years. And so you can see here that across the years, the number of people taking all 3 sections of CBEST are going down. And that has a lot to do with the mix and match option for basic skills. A lot of people who are taking CBEST are taking just one section of CBEST and using coursework for the other sections. But we can see that for the 5-year cohort, they still have a cumulative pass rate on CBEST of 81%. Table 10 and Table 11 show pass rate information for first-time test takers and the cumulative passing rate for each group by gender and by ethnicity for the same 5-year period. Moving on to CSET. The CSET are our subject examinations for teachers. And again, these measure content knowledge, and the CSETs are designed specifically to measure only content knowledge and not pedagogy. And we have a whole bunch of them. Table 12 shows the domains that are measured and the number of types of items that are used on each of the CSETs across all of the different subject areas. You can see that goes on for a little while. CSET is a very large testing program. More than 450,000 examinees have taken CSET since the inception of the program in 2003. We watched that number go up and up and up over the years. If you skip down to Table 14 in the agenda item, you can see the cumulative and annual passing rates for each of the CSET subject areas for the 2022-23, the most recent academic year. Those are the annual results. And for each subject area, the cumulative rate represents since the inception of the current form of each of those examinations. Overall, there's nearly a little bit over 81% pass rate cumulatively across all the examinations, and little over 61% annual pass rate across all the examinations. Table 15 shows across, again, all of the different CSETs, the annual and cumulative passing rates by gender and ethnicity. And it's interesting to note here that more than half of the examinees, the majority of examinees typically for CSETs, are female. But for the most current academic year in this report, 22-23, you can see in the annual results column that less than half, or really only about 40% of the examinees in this most recent year were white, whereas cumulatively more than half have typically been white. So those are some changing demographics on CSETs right there. In Appendix B, you can find the passing rates by race and ethnicity for each of the single subject and all the different content areas individually of CSET. Moving on to the National Evaluation Series, or NES examinations. Again, these are used by some candidates who want to utilize the early completion option for intern preparation. And they come in 2 varieties. There's an elementary variety and a secondary variety. And these are exams that are not owned by CTC. The commission owns most of the exams we talk about in these reports, but the National Evaluation Series are what we call an off-the-shelf exam, meaning that this is something that Pearson puts together and administers all over the country for various reasons. We only use it here in California for this one very specific reason. Table 18 in the agenda item shows the annual and cumulative passing rates by gender and ethnicity for the combined NES assessments. And again, in the appendix, you can find a further breakdown of that information for the NES examinees. RECA is the next examination in this item. And as we talked about before, the RECA was updated somewhat recently, a couple of years ago, to change it from what was historically a one-shot written exam where you had a constructed response portion and a multiple choice portion. And it was broken up into 3 separate subtests that were thought to be sort of easier bites, one at a time for examinees, and really simplify the retake process for people who don't pass RECA initially. Now they only have to pass the whichever subtest they didn't initially pass. Now, information for both the what we call the original 2009 version of RECA that just had a single multiple choice and a single constructed response section, and the revised three subtest version of RECA are combined in this report. And there's a description of each of those exams in the item. And we also have the RECA video performance assessment, which sometimes gets forgotten about, but this is another RECA option that candidates have who need to pass RECA. Table 9 on page 29 shows for each of the testing years covered under this report, the number of examinees who've taken each of the RECAs. And table 20 shows first time and cumulative passing rates for the 5 years contained in this report from 2018 to 2023. The cumulative passing rate for RECA is about 83% across the 5 years for these combined cohorts. Table 22 shows RECA first timing cumulative passing rates by gender and ethnicity for the same 5-year period. Moving along to CTEL. CTEL is the California Teacher of English Learners exam, and it's used mostly by out-of-state candidates who don't have an English learner authorization, but who want to teach in California. And table 23 shows the number of people taking each of the CTEL subtests. CTEL has 3 subtests, and you have to pass all 3 in order to pass CTEL. You can see these numbers don't really change that much outside of sort of a decrease from, we've been watching CTEL numbers go down for many, many years. But it seems to have leveled out a little bit from about 2019 forward. We're getting about the same number of people taking RECA subtests, more or less. Table 24 shows for CTEL the first time and cumulative passing rates for people who attempted all 3 of the subtests. And you can see their cumulative passing rate for the 5-year period is about 71%. And table 25 shows that same information, the same pass rates, but by gender and ethnicity for people who took all 3 subtests of CTEL. Now, the CSET World Languages Bilingual Specific Examinations are part of our CSET series of examinations, but they're used specifically for candidates who want to earn a bilingual authorization to teach in bilingual classrooms to English learners or other students in a bilingual setting. Table 26 shows for the most popular of these examinations, which is our bilingual specific examinations for Spanish. This shows the number of exams that were administered for each of the 5 years covered in this report and for the 5 years overall. And table 27 shows the pass rates by gender and ethnicity for those same CSET Spanish bilingual specific subtests. And last but not least in our report is the California Preliminary Administrative Credential Exam, or CPACE. CPACE, again, is the Commission's examination option for earning a preliminary administrative credential, and it's different from the APA, or the Administrative Performance Assessment that administrator candidates and programs complete. This CPACE was designed to replace a program for examinees who either already had a lot of experience or lived in areas where they didn't have access to a program or things like that. And examinees have to pass both sections of CPACE to pass it, and there are 2 pieces. There's the CPACE content and the CPACE performance assessment. You can see in table 28 in the agenda item that CPACE continues to have a very low pass rate. It's a difficult exam and people have difficulty with it. And so only about 30% of people who attempt both sections of CPACE are passing CPACE. Table 29 shows the annual and cumulative passing rates for CPACE by gender and ethnicity for the 18 to 23 cohort. And it's interesting to note in this one that 3 to 4 times as many women as men are completing both sections of CPACE, and that women are passing at a higher rate than men also. Additional information about CPACE and all of these examinations can be found in the very extensive appendices of this item. And I'm here and happy to answer any questions that any commissioners.
Taylor, we're over here to move because all the lights turned off. All right, well,
Stand up.
we need to move around a little bit more.
Your watch is right.
All right, well, thank you, Mr. Taylor. We'll now open up for public comments. If there are members of the public that would like to make a comment, please notify the meeting moderator by submitting a request card or by clicking on the raise hand icon. If participating through Zoom, or pressing *9 and participating by phone. Public comment is limited to 2 minutes per speaker. Recording secretary, are there any public comments?
Morning, Chair Shire, Commissioner, Dr. Sandy, and CTC staff. My name is Sarah Kaminsky with the Association of California School Administrators. I want to first start by commending the staff for this robust report. A couple of observations and a couple of questions for consideration. I want to highlight on page 30, the RICA data shows that in the most recent years reported in this item, 51.4%, over half of all RICA takers, failed it in their first attempt. This highlights the urgency in Senate Bill 488's repeal of this out-of-date dysfunctional assessment. Perhaps I'm missing this, but I couldn't find the first-time pass rates for CSET. And I'm also wondering why TPA first-time pass rates are not included in this report. Like many of the other assessments in this item, it's centrally scored. This item contains rich data, but we need to find ways to make it meaningful data that not only informs, but aids improvement. For example, it would be ideal to crosswalk these data with individual programs. Is that published somewhere? And I'd also like to have more insight on how these data, and in particular, first-time pass rates, are factored into the accreditation system. So I know we're having the robust discussion on TPA, and that's happening tomorrow, but it would be good to know if members that are doing the accreditation visits are given a robust profile on the institution that includes in-depth assessment data pertinent to the program for all assessments, and also what happens differently in an accreditation visit for programs with low pass rates. So thank you in advance for the clarification on those questions that I posed. Thank you.
Salazar. Good morning, Angelica Salazar with Public Advocates. Thank you for preparing and presenting this important and thorough annual report. I have a few reflections for your consideration. The harmful and persistent gaps by race and ethnicity across these standardized tests have been devastating for our Black and Brown and possibly multilingual teacher candidates, devastating for the diversity of our educator pipeline and also for our education system at large. As it relates to CBEST, last year we commented that it was time to eliminate or significantly reform this unnecessary barrier. 1 year later, we strongly support the governor's budget proposal to streamline the basic skills requirement by accepting successful completion of a bachelor's degree as a substitute for the CBEST. We also know the commission has been hard at work to retire the RICA and replace it with a more authentic literacy performance assessment. We urge the commission to look very closely at any potential racial and ethnic disparities during the LPA's piloting season. I'm wondering if you already have some data on that, actually. Also, educators named the CSET as a major obstacle. Luckily, the governor's proposal also calls for an expansion in the coursework domains for candidates to demonstrate their subject matter expertise. We know these coursework alternatives require transcript review that can take significant labor for educator preparation programs. Will all programs have the staffing and knowledge to support qualifying teacher candidates, save the time, money, and stress associated with the CSET? Assuming this measure is included in the final budget, Please monitor the implementation and uptake and help ensure programs get the technical assistance they need. Also, offer targeted support to those programs serving high concentrations of Black and Brown students as an acknowledgement of the racial and ethnic disparities of these pass rates. The landscape is shifting in the right direction, and our efforts to ensure equitable access to the profession for our teacher candidates of color must grow. Thank you.
No additional requests. Public comment period for this item is now closed. Commissioners have any questions or comments on this item? Commissioner De La Torre, Commissioner Hartwig. I'll go down the line. So I'll start with Commissioner De La Torre.
Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for this very robust report. I do have a few questions. My first question is that you did mention that the first time this most recent year, white candidates made up less than half of the
I said Mike Taylor.
Of the teachers who, or potential teachers, right? So less than 50%. Do you know what, if the percentage of teachers overall, new teachers, is also less than 50%?
I don't have the numbers on what the population of teachers looks like in the state of California. And I think the number you reference is just specifically about CBEST this year. Yeah.
Right, the CBEST candidates. That's correct. Yes.
Right.
I would be interested to see if who is choosing the alternate options and if that ethnic breakdown matches or is different from, significantly different from the data of who is still taking the assessments. My second question is, do we have access to the percentage of alternative assessments for the ethnicities?
By that, do you mean examinees who request alternative testing arrangements?
Yes, or through transcript review.
Oh, I see. Or who, yeah, I think I don't have that in the report and I haven't seen that information, but I do think that that would be very, very interesting to see the breakdown of who by ethnicity of who's using which option to meet the basic skills and subject matter requirements. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. And my third question is, I didn't see National Board listed as any of the alternative measures for certification, but I know that that is a pathway to teacher certification. Is there a reason why that's not included?
Well, National Board isn't one of the official commission adopted examinations for use toward a specific credential requirement. So that's the only reason it's not included in there.
I see. Thank you. And the fourth thing is, this is my last question, or maybe just a thought. Is there a way to monitor classroom impact of new teachers, depending on which pathway they entered the profession? What the impact is on instruction and also possible teacher retention?
That would be very interesting information. Historically, teacher employment data isn't data that we have or have access to, so we haven't been able to make that comparison, but I do think it'd be very interesting if we were able to find that.
Might be able to add. So the Cradle to Career data system has the very question in front of them. And 2 years ago, maybe it's just last year, David, that they had indicated that the first actions they were planning to publish were going to get right to the nexus of preparation, licensure, and employment, and help us, by combining data from multiple agencies to get a good view of kind of what are the patterns of credentialing, of attrition, of retention, of movement of the workforce. So we're waiting to see how they put those data together, but it is, we are also in the process, sorry, you're not waving to me, no, you're trying to get the lights on. We're also in the process of transitioning our data system in ways that are going to make it more possible for us to conduct those kinds of analyses, some of those analyses in-house. So, but that is the gold ring we've been seeking for a long time, which is to understand what the patterns of employment are. and how long people are staying, if how that relates to pathways in, et cetera. Other groups have done some research on this. Citerin, which is a University of California group, the California Educator, oh golly, I can't remember what the acronym stands for, but that's a group that's focused specifically in their research on teacher preparation and licensure and all of the issues that are attendant to it. The Learning Policy Institute has also got some very interesting studies about the workforce. We look forward to the day when the Commission's teacher supply report is able to be more multidimensional and answer more of the questions that you're asking.
Could you just say another sentence or two about the cradle to career work and what's the anticipated timeline?
I'm asking David.
that? Okay.
David sits on their board.
Because
for
we've
us,
heard
so-
about that often, so I think it'd be important for commissioners to get just a brief update. Thank you, David.
Sure. So the initial plan was to have the teacher dashboard starting this summer. But for reasons I don't understand, it's some back-end data stuff. They actually pushed that off probably till fall or winter is when we'll see the first ones. But we are really looking forward to the retention data in particular. One other thing that they're going to be able to connect is data from the state labor agency to look at where teachers go after they leave the profession. They will be able to connect to job area, not specific type of jobs, but is it in education? Is it in manufacturing? Where are they going? And potentially what salaries they earn. But the first set of dashboards they're doing are based on K-12 students. So we will see some interesting ones coming out there soon.
The only other thing I'd like to add is that I think it would be very interesting as we get more capable, closer to being very capable to run these data, would be to also see what the employment and mobility and attrition rates are for national board certified teachers. Though that is, as Mike Taylor said, it is not an assessment or that we use for licensure, except as a pathway that's recognized without any other questions asked about it. It is still a really important marker of what is happening in the teaching profession. And I think it would be a really interesting data point for us to include in the rest of it. And as for the other assessments that you're asking questions about and that Ms. Kaminsky from AXA raised questions about, we've had so much change relative to the standardized test that Mike Taylor is reporting on in this report, and also in answer to a question. The performance assessment data report will be in October. They're just too much for one. We'd have to devote a whole day to that. So we do it in 2 days instead. But we've had a lot of change. In fact, the governor's January 10 budget, I think this is still a current part of the budget plan, will make CBEST a new route to beating basic skills is that you hold a baccalaureate degree. So that, I think, is going to make that assessment largely irrelevant for the teaching force. Similarly, RICA is scheduled to be replaced, as was mentioned, by the literacy performance assessment that we've been working on. We just finished a pilot of it. We'll field test it next year, and it will be ready to go in the spring, in the 25-26 year. And that will, so RICA's end is coming soon. The CSET, we've got the AB 130 legislation that was passed a couple of years ago that enables multiple ways now to meet the CSET. So I think the question you're asking is who's taking advantage of these is a question of great interest to all of us. And as we get better ways in which we can query our data, which is in development, and maybe even through the cradle to career data, the way they're mixing the data, we'll be able to begin to query for those very questions, but important questions. How that's used in accreditation, I think that question is very much on the table, probably more so tomorrow when we talk through the performance assessment work and what may be happening in the future around that. I loved the way you framed that, Saret, the idea of this robust profile of every institution. We have a good profile of every institution, and where assessment fits into that, I think, is a really important question. So.
Thank you. And the reason I ask these questions is I'm concerned that the message is not reaching those potential candidates who would benefit most from these options.
Right.
You know, almost like Juneteenth, right? It took a lot of time for that message to get to those affected individuals. Looking at the data, we've got a long ways to go because I'm still shocked that the data comes up the same.
Yes, you're so right about that. And if you don't mind me just, engaging just a little bit more fully in this, we put in place a set of career counselors in our roadmap to a credential process. And that is one source of information about what assessments you need to meet. One of the things we did is for that roadmap early on was build a CBEST portal that would walk you through what are the different ways that you could meet the basic skills requirement. And that's going to become very, very simple unless, when you have a baccalaureate degree, if the budget is signed with this in it, you begin to have met that. But the career counselors themselves are available and they're doing more and more outreach as they get the weight of their work kind of really moving forward. But again, I think David has predicted to me that we're still going to see, 25,000 people sign up for the CBEST because they didn't know they didn't have to. So we've got work to do to communicate these changes as they become available, and that's what we'll continue to do. And our teacher preparation programs are much closer. Our employers are much closer to the field. So how we interact with those communities to also get really clear messaging out is critical. But, and it's underway.
I know we had other commissioners. Commissioner Hartley.
Yes, thank you. And I just have a couple of observations and questions that follow on my colleagues' comments here as well. I did want to just take a moment to reflect what Mr. Taylor said at the beginning, noting what a material impact making these changes to the options to meet the basic skills requirements and the subject matter requirement, what a rapid impact there has. I want to take a moment to reflect on that, and I guess also just appreciate what change that the commission makes can have a pretty rapid impact when you look at the percentages. So the percentage of folks in 2021 to 2022 who met the basic skills requirement by examination was 83%, dropped all the way down to 68% within 1 year. I mean, that is a very significant change. So even though we expect to see much more change, and some of this might even be moot should there be a change, that is, in my mind, extremely dramatic. And likewise with meeting the subject matter requirement, going from 63% meeting it by examination in 2021 to 2022, down to 52% in 2022 to 2023. That is very rapid change for this kind of a major system, and important to recognize. And then Commissioner De La Torre already asked the question that I was going to ask, which was to learn more about how use of these alternative options breaks down according to ethnicity and subgroup, because I just want to second that request that's going to be very important for our own learning about how effective these changes are. I did have one observation and question if we moved to table 7 on page 13. I noticed a slightly alarming, I guess I would say, downtrend in the first time passage rate for the math section. The first time passage rate went from, in 2019 to 2020, 77%, and every year down to 22 to 23 to 69.7%, which is a pretty substantial change. It's not reflected so much in the cumulative rate because the cumulative rate is at 74%, but when you see that downward trend, it's every year. So I guess I wanted to note and observe that. And again, this may be less and less relevant as this test is less and less relevant, but
I can make a comment on that though.
Alarming to me. Oh,
if you don't mind.
Great.
That's actually
Yes,
that's actually maybe more a result of how the information is reported than an actual downward trend. So because all of our exams are each cohort of examinees. So each year, the group of examinees who took the cohort, all of our statistics are sample dependent on all of our exams. So they reflect that individual cohort, which could be a completely different cohort from previous cohorts. And there's two other things going on with that are going to affect that specific rate. One is that the difference between the rate's always going to be lower for more recent cohorts than for cohorts from years past, because the most recent cohort has not had as much time to attempt to retake the exam or to make multiple attempts on the exam. And so that'll affect that. And the second one is, in more recent years, because of the new options available for AB 130, there's a change in who takes the exam. So at this point, the people taking CBEST are most likely to be people who did not get a B or better in an undergraduate math course. And so I guess what I'm saying is the people who are taking CBEST math are now more likely to already have been struggling in math. And so that's going to affect that rate as well. So that's just a couple of comments on that.
And if I could follow up on that, I think we can expect that our first time and overall pass rates on the CSET will also go down over time, because the people who have a bachelor's degree in that area meet subject matter through that. They don't have to take the CSET anymore. And people who have extensive coursework in that area no longer have to take the CSET. So it'll only be people, or mostly be people who want to get a credential in an area for which they did not study intensively.
Thank you. Those are very helpful. And you anticipated my next question, which was going to be, because I was interested in the trend in the first time pass rate, which does go down. And my question was going to be the one that both of you just answered, which is there an interaction going on with the different cohort because of people using alternatives? So that's very helpful. And my final quick question and comment and maybe query for a different meeting is looking at the CPACE rates. So when we look at table 28 on page 37, as Mr. Taylor already noted, this is the CPACE rate continues to be very low. And that's a trend it would be wonderful to turn around, because as we know, we have an administrator crisis as well as a teacher shortage crisis, and providing opportunities for busy administrator or busy education leaders to earn an administrative credential not through a regular program is a very important option. And as is noted in the report, it is very interesting that the content portion of this exam is passed at over twice, 2.5 times the rate that the performance percent is passed. And so I guess I have less of a question for this particular report and more just an interest in, perhaps in some other meeting, learning more about why that is, and if there are any levers that the commission itself can pull on to help support candidates who are wanting to pass this as a way to become administrators. So I just wanted to bring a little bit of focus, because that's of course disappointing news when we think about how many administrators we need, that there would be this much, a decent amount of interest, and a lot of people who can't get past the finish line, either including through cumulative attempts.
And so a couple things on that one. Across our exams, candidates will pass the multiple choice or knowledge-based questions at a much higher rate than the short answer or extended answer. So I mean, that's kind of by test design. But I will also say that we are going to be reviewing and updating our administrator standards and performance expectations starting in the 2024-25 academic year. And then following that, we'll go back to the CPACE to update the CPACE based on the updated standards and performance expectations. And we will look at some of the concerns, because this is not the first time we've heard that concern.
If my director will allow me to, just as a reminder, the CPACE exam weighs
an entire prep program for those folks.
Yes.
Spent my whole life being told I was too loud. There we go. Just a reminder in general, and for the folks watching, that the CPACE exam, it waives an entire program. So it is meant to be a very, comprehensive exam. So just that, I just wanted to add that.
Thank you. That's helpful context to remind. Thank you.
I know we had also, I'm going to go down the line. I'll get back to you. I also see Commissioner Fabry's hand up. So I'm going to go with Commissioner Cruz.
Yes, thank you for the report. As it happens, right? We data and then it surfaces a lot of questions, right? And which is why we look at this. And, I had some similar questions that have already been brought up in regards to the access and the information. And I'm glad that we're doing a lot of outreach and making sure that those that have the opportunities for different paths can choose those paths that best serve them. So I'm glad that that's happening, and I'm glad to hear that some of these examinations, assessments are going to be phased out. But more in terms of a general question, and maybe something that we can include in the reports is, how do we look at these when we have such low passing rates, especially when there's a larger end, right? When 2 or 3 people are taking it, and there's, that fluctuates up and down so much that, I wouldn't be too concerned about that. But certainly when there's a large end in terms of those that are taking it, and yet we still see such low passing rates. So for example, on the CSET foundational math, first time 31%, cumulative 53%. So as a system, what do we do when we see that? Like, we see the data, it's like, okay, well, what are we going to do? How are we going to examine what's going on? And to some of the answers, well, the people taking it are now different from what it's, but it's still, those that are taking it are still failing to pass the exam. So what is it? Is it the exam? Is it the way this exam is put together? So I think it opens the opportunity for us to always question and examine the reasons why such low passing rates. So more of that, and if that is already being done, included in the report, so that the public and us can see that there's already due diligence, which I'm sure there is, but putting it in the report would help elevate that and say, okay, somebody's looking at this, and there's things that maybe are already being done to address that. So just wanted to sort of elevate that.
I so appreciate that. And you started with something that I think is, well, I think you're brilliant, but this was a brilliant statement, that the reason why we collect these data is so that we can see and ask the questions that need to be asked. And the lights go out as soon as I say that. I don't know what the message is, but exactly. Maybe it's the seed, I don't know. I think another possibility we also should keep on the table goes back to something that David DeGeer said, which is, it may be that the people who are signing up for a foundational math course, which I believe only goes through Algebra 1, it only goes through Algebra 1, don't know enough mathematics for us to be confident to credential them and let them teach it. And they may be better served, instead of taking this exam and studying, test booklets to learn enough so they can reach a passing standard, they may be better served to take some courses that prepare them. Going back to what Liaison Ide Rodriguez was saying earlier, that when being prepared to do it is something we really have to attend to when we issue a license. So, that's kind of a purpose of these exams, is to make sure people have enough knowledge that we're comfortable licensing them. But you are so absolutely right that we've got to make sure we're doing it in a way that is actually getting to the knowledge that is necessary, and that the assessment itself by its structure or nature is not itself the impediment. And that is something we have to be ever watchful for. And I know Mike Taylor's job here, part of what he does for us, is to look at every administration and see where are we seeing issues, and to follow up with leadership about, we may need to do X, Y, or Z, in order to make sure this assessment is really getting to what it needs to. So some due diligence, could there always be more? Yes, there could. And I appreciate the questions from commissioners that keep us on track with that.
And if I could just repeat something that Mike said earlier, because it's so easy to miss it. But the basic skills and the CSAT, the knowledge exams, are something that happens outside of preparation. It's supposed to happen before preparation. So we don't necessarily want to look at pass rates at each program for those, because those are really programs who are trying to accept candidates who may not be where they need to be and are trying to provide support to them so that they can pass in the end. But then how do we improve, the general education that's going on at our colleges and universities and community colleges so that everyone can pass? I mean, we kind of expect everyone who graduates high school to be able to do Algebra 1. And yet we struggle.
I know there's other commissioners, Commissioner Simmons.
Yeah, just a couple of questions. One is, if if the bachelor's degree will meet the needs of basic skills, will that automatically affect all credentials? I'm thinking 30-day sub, TIPSL, all of those directly, or will we have to redo Title V, Office of Administrative Law, all of that? Or does it, the minute the governor signs it, it changes?
The minute the governor signs it, it goes into effect. Aaron Scooble looked through credentials, and the only one that I can remember that would not benefit from this is the substitute permit for candidates who are mostly through the preparation program. Yeah. So they've got, I think, 90 units. So they haven't gotten their bachelor's degree yet.
The other question I have is tie on to what public advocates talked about in terms of, and I see all of our friends from CCAC in the back, talking about the burden of transcript review. And I know that there was discussion of remodeling the SMRs to be more tailored to the needs of a credential analyst as opposed to a test maker. And where are we on that?
We are working on it, but to be honest with you, all of the efforts around SB 1263 and the TPA have taken a lot of our attention. But we continue to work on those and hope to have them out sometime this summer.
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
We hope to have the updated SMRs out sometime this summer.
Are there work groups for that?
We're trying to do it with staff to expedite the process and make sure we're not going. One of our concerns is if we go to the experts, like using the subject matter projects, there's a tendency with those groups to want to, and we're really trying to look at it from the point of view of a credential analyst, to make sure that it is understandable to them.
Because I think the one that when I've gone through and tried to look for what multiple subjects would be, it's a loss.
So multiple subject is actually not as much of a priority for us because state statute also allows an interdisciplinary degree with at least one course in each of the 9 areas. So we've kind of called that a mini transcript review. It's something that can be done quickly. And we're starting to talk about how we might clarify that in regulations.
I think that would be very helpful. And the other question I have is kind of a mercenary one. How will the declining number of test takers impact our budget?
Not positively.
In a normal year, our revenues around for assessment have been between 4 and 5 million per year. So that's going to go down.
Will it go down in a way that is dangerous?
Oh, I don't know. I think that I'm an optimist. I think Brian and the budget team are working on this very thing, projecting what needs to happen to keep the commission's budget stable. And all of these changes have not been done without some awareness that that's a revenue source for the commission. But so we're working on that, and we aren't going under yet.
It is something we talked with Department of Finance about, because this year and last year, we did not receive the $4 to $5 million in exam revenue because of the exam fee waiver.
We're working with the Department of Finance on this, and they're highly aware. They want us solvent and effective and efficient, as do we. So we're working on it.
All right, I know I have Commissioner Davis. Do you have? Or the Commissioner Davis, and then Commissioner Padre afterwards, and then Commissioner Khan.
So thank you, Mr. Taylor, again for such a robust report. And I always appreciate the data when it comes across. And when I saw this item, I went back in history to Horace Mann to figure out, hey, how did we start with standardized assessments? And that Horace Mann is considered one of the godfathers or grandfathers of this of standardized assessment. And the idea that the first standardized assessment actually didn't have standards attached to them, and it was a gotcha test that he and his colleagues at the time had given, and school boards were intimately involved in this process. I had no idea. And the school board members originally were tasked with giving assessments to children in schools, and then subsequently resulted in firing lots of teachers and administrators. And so then standards came to go with standardized tests, and so then there was an element of being able to prepare for these tests. But the time frame between 1837 and 1845 is during the slave period, and also periods of time where Native folks were being displaced, and lots of other people of color in general were not part of the discussion of the framing of the original standardized assessments. And when we talk about poor performance by minority groups and public shaming of teachers, that has happened historically in the history of the United States. Little known fact for most of us here, and Juneteenth always brings about, my ability to be an African-American scholar on occasion, having had the best education from LA State in my undergrad years. We were talking, the research talks about how during the period of Brown versus Board of Education, that integrated schools, but not integrated a workforce. So all of the Black teachers practically in the United States were fired. Because as we integrated schools, we stopped having the one-room shacks and people being educated in stables, where by and large teachers of color were teaching successfully, might I add, for years, and replaced by their white colleagues, who then were told if they wanted their jobs back, they have to take the national teacher exam or one of these other standardized measures, and they were historically not able to compete in that realm either, because they were not educated the same way their white colleagues were. So there's a history of everything that we see in this data that has been introduced as I have been a commissioner on this commission. And I'm going to keep going. The original framing of this body in the 1970s and some of those first tests, again, wasn't a diverse audience of folks or participants who put the test together, nor were the people who initially took CBEST, for example, and put together some of those early assessments. And so here is what the point I want to go to. We have a basic skills requirement, and it's CBEST, CSET, like we've been talking about around the table, especially today here. And I understand what that coursework is. I gave all the background to just kind of give you a context, just to show like how we as a commission have an opportunity to fix some of these past wrongs that the system has placed in the form of barriers for people of color in the realm of these high stakes assessments. I've heard from our colleagues from, excuse me, CFT, CTA, and many hundreds of teacher candidates who have written in or called this commission about what we're doing surrounding these assessments. And while everyone doesn't agree or on whether we should have these high stakes assessments, we all agree that the data show that BIPOC candidates disproportionately fail to achieve a passing score. And I'm going to go through each of these tables, and as a future national board certified teacher, I'm going to look at through a deficit lens, all of this. I normally look at a very positive framing. Overall, the pass rate ranges in table 6 for the data represented between 74.3% and 82.7%, for an overall cumulative pass rate of 80.5% for the given period 2018-2023 of all the demographic groups, 1/3 to 1/4 of all cumulative testers across all demographic groups don't pass. African Americans fared the worst at 68% passing, Latinos at 73%, and Southeast Asians at 73% respectively. That's shameful. CSET, table 13, the overall pass rate ranges for the data represented are vast and varied in table 13. However, in table 15 of all the demographic groups, 1/4 to 1/5 of all cumulative testers across all demographic groups don't pass. And again, African Americans fared the worst at 65.5% passing, along with Hispanics and Native Americans at 76.2 and 76.4% passing respectively. The National Evaluation System, the NES, African Americans, Hispanics, Native Americans fare better, but there are so few testers overall represented in this group. RICA in table 20, their overall pass rate ranges for the data represented between 69.1% to 92.4%, for an overall pass rate of 82.9% for the given period of 2018 to 2023. If we look at table 22, a range of 1/4 to 1/10 of all demographic groups don't pass. And again, African Americans and Mexican Americans or Chicanos fared at 75.4% and 75.5% respectively, while Latino, Latin Americans, Puerto Ricans, and Hispanics fared at 77.5% passing. And the CTEL, table 24, the overall pass rate ranges for the data represented ranges between 53.5% passing and 71% when all 3 parts are attempted for the given period of 2018-2023. In table 25, more than 50% of African Americans and more than 45% of Mexican or Chicanos do not pass. With the CTEL, it looks like all BIPOC demographic groups represented, save Native Americans, fared pretty poorly overall in that last column. The CSET, World Languages, Spanish, table 27. The overall pass rate ranges for the data represented 69.2% for the given period of 2002 to 2023, unless there's a typo there in the years indicated. That's 21 years of data. And about 43% of African Americans, 39% of Asians, and 32% of Hispanic Americans do not pass that assessment. The CPACE, table 28. The overall pass rate range for the data represented is 30.9% amongst all demographic groups, and they all performed abysmally, with Native American, Indians, Alaskan Natives failing at an 84% rate and African Americans failing at an 80% rate. Those of you who know me know my work with the National Board Resource Center at Stanford know that I don't typically present information in a deficit lens. I try to look at the optimism, especially with stats and data. And I want to say congratulations to all the candidates who were able to achieve mastery and pass the assessments that they undertook. I'm sure you worked really diligently to achieve these successes and all these assessments, but my intention here is not to detract from your achievements, but to highlight how privilege in our system has systematically excluded BIPOC candidates from classrooms across California. It's not our modern doing, but we're perpetuating the system by, in some cases, fine-tuning assessments that we know have or already we have been or contemplating replacing with other high stakes assessments with poor statistical outcomes for BIPOC candidates that are ones that are outlined in this report. I want to thank the staff for putting this together. Such robust information does give us information and informs our decisions for the future. And these data remind us that the work that we have before us that highlights the damage that has been done by these disparities in our systems from the past and are still covertly present in our education system. And we have the power to change these trends. So RICA and NES, they measure what is happening within preparation groups is what I've heard in this presentation today. And while this isn't a question for Mr. Taylor, and I don't know that you can respond to this, but I wonder to what extent the pass rates are associated with our prep programs accreditations, because I don't know that we hold people to task when it comes to our accreditation system. It's a robust system. It's one of the best in the world. However, as I read through what preparation institutions have to go through to maintain or to become accredited, I don't know that the students or the candidates' success rates on assessments have anything to do with that. The next thing I want to add is, why did it take so long for CBEST and RICA to get the boot? I mean, like literally. I've said this before and I'm going to keep saying it again. I believe in our private and public institutions in California. If we stand by these institutions and if they stand by their own systems and academic integrity, all the candidates leaving these institutions should always have satisfied the basic skills requirement. I can't imagine somebody graduating from a Stanford University or an LA State not knowing how to read or write. But if that's the case, then we need to go back and investigate how that happened. And not that someone has to have their accreditation yanked, but if that's happening with one person, there's a problem systemically in that institution, in the systems, and that needs to be ferreted out and fixed. And then the last question, again, a hypothetical. I know that Executive Director Sandy addressed this, but why is the TPA not included in this report? Because I would like to see all of this data aligned so that we can see point blank in that last column how all of these tests and the TPA are disproportionately hurting people that look like me and half the people around this stage. Thank you very much.
I think we had Commissioner Pavri.
Thank you. That's a tough act to follow, Commissioner Davis. Thank you so much for your very powerful and eloquent call to action. And I just want to add to what you just said. It's disproportionately hurting people who look like you, who are educated, but ultimately it's disproportionately hurting our young people in the schools because they don't see educators who look like them. So thank you for that extremely important summary and call to action. I wanted to make 3 comments. One was, I think we've been talking about different ways to outreach to our candidates about the need, especially for them not to have to take the CBEST. I mean, I still hear candidates talk about the MSAT and, so they're hearing from people things that are required that have long been gone. The one area that I think might be the most powerful for us, we of course need to continue multiple ways in which we reach our candidates, but everyone needs to go to the CBEST and CSET website to sign up and register. And I just pulled up both those websites and I see, especially the CBEST site does have right on top a statement. And I wonder if we can change the language on that statement to be much more active and powerful. Right now it says passing the CBEST is one of the several options for satisfying the basic skills requirement. I think we need to be really clear. Stop. You may not need to take the CBEST. Those of us who work with students, we know we have to be very active, simple, clear. The CSET website is actually even more confusing because it doesn't have any statement like this. So I would urge us to a simple fix to prevent so much stress, waste of time, and most significantly, waste of money for our candidates. The second area that I want to go back to, and I think Commissioner Simmons brought it up, was with the subject matter. Well, let me just, I'm going to be optimistic about the basic skills and the RECA requirements sunsetting very soon. So we do need to pay attention very closely to our subject matter requirements. We need to maintain a bar. Candidates need to be proficient in the content they need to teach. The AB 130 guidelines have been a great start. There is incredible confusion around them still. And so as Commissioner Simmons mentioned, and David, you said that there will be further guidance coming out to the field in this summer. We eagerly look forward to that because that is going to be a big area that we need to enhance. And I also want to highlight, as budgets shrink for the commission, they shrink for most state agencies, including our ed prep programs. So we want to try and provide clear guidance, and we want to not enhance workload for much smaller staffs in many of our preparation programs. And then I want to go back to, and I do want to just one more comment about the subject matter transcript review with the guidance. There's another variable that's popping its head up in terms of the degree titles. We've got very precise and specific degree titles that automatically meet the requirement. And I wonder if we can revisit some of those, because there are some programs that have options that meet the same requirement, but they are not listed there. So we can talk offline, David, if that's helpful.
That would be, yes.
Thank you. And then the last area I want to, I was going to speak to in more detail, but I think both Commissioner Cruz and particularly Commissioner Davis have really asked us to look closely at the CSET test. If we need to prioritize one of our tests, clearly to me that is the CSET, because it is the gatekeeper and the entry for some of our candidates who may not have demonstrated proficiency through subject matter to come into our educator prep programs. And clearly there's ethnic and racial disparities in how our candidates perform. And so we need to look at the tests themselves, the content, the norm criteria, the implicit bias issues embedded in those. Thank you.
Commissioner Poverty, Commissioner Cotton.
Thank you so much. I wanted to start off and just say thank you to Commissioner Davis for that historical walkthrough. Tying it to Juneteenth, I personally struggle with saying happy Juneteenth because it is the result of such disparity within our country that we are still seeing lingering effects of. And so celebration, yes, happy, that's hard. But I appreciate that historical walk and bringing us along that journey with you. I completely agree, Commissioner Cruz, when we present data, the point of it is to engage it and to ask those questions and those wonderings. Saret, I really appreciated, you kind of kicked us off with, and I'm wondering about, and what about, and what about. My what about is really around those candidates who have attempted, and that came up in our conversation, who have attempted and attempted and attempted again. Do we know when folks gave up, why they gave up, how many attempts have been made to actually pass these assessments? That is data that I'm interested in. And if that may help in, again, telling the story, telling this narrative around who was impacted and why, and at what point either is there a clicking and like comes on and moving forward, or at what point have we lost a potential candidate who may have been fantastic in the classroom to the testing divide. It doesn't have to be today, but putting that out there as we're looking at our data and a wondering that.
Are there any other commissioners?
I could just piggyback on the last comment and you mentioned in regard to the folks that are maybe not passing these. The better course would be to go and take some coursework. I'm wondering if when candidates make these assessments and they get the results, if there are suggestions or things when they get the results about how they could go about maybe taking a different path or something, so that they're not just hitting a wall. I'm just wondering if that is already in there, or maybe that's something for us to consider.
Oh, I think it definitely is, Commissioner. And, goal would be that assessments are primarily diagnostic and shed light. And in fact, I think that's been part of the concept around CSED and allowing mixing and matching coursework and tests and all of this. I'd say we are maybe a third of the way down the path to the goal that we're talking about here. Because we have this monolithic testing system of CSED. It's huge. I mean, how many content areas? And everybody has to demonstrate competence. And we've allowed majors, we've allowed coursework, but we've got a ways to go. And the idea that an assessment could be diagnostic, all of the CSEDs are built into subtests. So if you pass one of them, you have to take it again. But if you didn't pass this other one, ideally you get a score report that said, shows you where you didn't have it together. And that's where you need to focus in order to get there. So I think you're onto something that is a really important goal. And I would agree that CSET has to be, is an absolute critical part of the system that enables or constrains the workforce. And we have to get our arms around that. So for that, we'll take that as both encouragement and staff direction. How about that? That's
Thank you, Commissioner Davis, again for the walkthrough. And as someone who's an English language learner, I'm a horrible test taker. And when I first took the CBES, I did not pass. And I love how Commissioner Cotton said, like, where is the wall? Like, where do you stop? And had it not been just like, I really want to work with kids, I wouldn't be here today and having this lens and this opportunity, not to just help someone like myself, but again, those students that I was able to teach for the last 18 plus years. And I love teaching and I'm learning from just all of my students. But being here gives an opportunity to look at all the data that has been presented and saying, this is an opportunity to examine what is happening, what is going on, what is the historical context, and how are we going to help our incoming educators? Because these are the educators that are going to help our students. And if I didn't continue studying for the CBES, I wouldn't be here and I wouldn't have met all of my wonderful students and continuing to teach. So at this point, I think this is our call to say, hey, let's examine this, because there are teachers out there, potential teachers, educators, student teachers out there who might be experiencing what I personally experienced. I'm not a test taker by any chance. Like, I'm still living in the world of CSET, because now I have to take foundational science. I don't have a BA or BS in science, but I love science. And I'm going to continue going and I'll continue learning and studying. So it's with that where we have to, again, ask ourselves, how can we help our teachers, our potential teachers? Because my goodness, it's so great to work with students. And then that historical context that you provided was amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think Commissioner Brown.
This will be a quick one. As someone who is here because I work in higher education, what I found as a community college instructor is that if I want to know if my students have mastered the content or the skills, I'm always thinking about how do I help them learn to teach well? And what I found is that the work that we're talking about now and the history of examinations being not the gateway in, but the barrier out is really important to look at. And everyone's here has been talking about that, so I don't need to keep leaning on that. But I think our institutions of higher education need to be connected to this exam dialogue. And I also think that the commission should not be dependent on examination fees for its financial support. Enough.
Comments?
Deep breath, everyone.
I would just like to say, I really, really appreciate you. I think you've got your eye on the right cause. We are eager to dig more deeply. This is really important, and thank you for it.
They're very difficult conversations to have, right? Even though this was a.
She can't hear. Saying we're not loud enough.
All right, let's talk louder. This was an information item and no action is needed at this time, but these are critical conversations that we need to keep having, but also have some action behind them, right? Because this is impacting the next generation of teachers, the next generation of learners. I myself did not pass the CBEST the first time, and my wife still makes fun of me to this day, and here I am on a commission. But there's so many of us that struggle or have had different barriers, but want to go into this profession, want to make a difference because it's needed, as we can see. So I just want to say thank you to staff, thank you to Mr. Taylor, thank you to fellow commissioners, and also for all of you that provided public comment. All of this is necessary in order for us to move forward, as our executive director has said over and over again. In order for us to be better, we have to know better in order to be better, right? So here we are, we know better, have to be better. And so that's what we're tasked with. So I appreciate you all. So with that said, having no additional items for today, I recess the Educator Preparation Committee until tomorrow.
So I will now recess the general session. Members of the commission will go into closed session. General session will reconvene on tomorrow morning, 8:30.